welcome. Let us begin straight away with our first question, and it is from Sue Barkley.
People are dismayed by the lack of integrity and honesty in politics today. After the recent allegations about political betting, how would you restore trust in politics?
All right, let's wait a second. I started a little bit late, so we're just going to wait for some people to roll in. Not really. I haven't booked that much time off, I'll be honest. In my job, it's quite difficult to book off days in the summer, but I will be taking a bit of time off from the channel, kind of, I think, the second week of July, I guess. Book some time off, just focus on other stuff. Just looking at the Labour Party just attacked the Bengali community here. It's pretty ugly stuff, I'm not gonna lie. Smoking the Bengal pack. It's ugly stuff. So that's gonna be a fun one to cover. That one feels a bit too personal, to be honest. So yeah, we'll cover that. See if we can get a couple more. If we can break into double digits, I can start justifiably. Let's see if we can, if I may. See if we can get a couple more people this Wednesday afternoon, evening even. It's really nice the weather, honestly. I do always miss the summer. Like, I don't miss the heat, but I miss the long day. It's Sunak vs Starmer, the last 1v1. Yeah, thank you, Wolfpet. Thanks, Wolfpet. I really appreciate that. If you want to be cool like Wolfpet, the super chats and memberships are available. That's a very early plug, given that I've not covered anything. But let's just start.
Sunak and Keir Starmer, welcome to you both. It's very good that you're taking part in this.
Let me know what the audio mixer sounded like.
Just over a week to polling day. Welcome. Let us begin straight away with our first question, and it is from Sue Barkley.
People are dismayed by the lack of integrity and honesty in politics today. After the recent allegations about political betting, how would you restore trust in politics?
That's a whopper of a question there for Sunak.
Thank you very much, Sue, for kicking us off. Now, both of your parties have faced allegations in this regard. In recent days, we know of 5 Conservatives being investigated and 1 Labour. Rishi Sunak.
Well, Sue, I completely share your anger. I was
This is going to be good, guys. This is going to be so good.
frustrated as you are furious when I learnt about these allegations. That's why, alongside the Gambling Commission, we initiated our own internal inquiries into what had happened, and as a result of that, have suspended 2 candidates. And I've been...
Took a while, though. Took a while to do suspension. It should be immediate suspension, especially when a commission, like a gambling commission, is involved.
crystal clear. Anyone who has broken the law, broken the rules, should not only face the full consequences of the law, I will ensure that they're booted out of the Conservative Party.
Keir Starmer.
Sue, thank you very much for your question, which I think is on a lot of people's minds, this question of respect and integrity
There's some dickhead here who's shouting in the background.
in politics. And you have to lead from the front on issues like this. I think over the last 14 years, politics has become too much about self-entitlement and MPs thinking about what they can get for themselves. And one of the important choices, and the thing that I would like to do,
Can you guys hear the guy shouting?
if I'm elected Prime Minister, is to reset politics so that politics returns to public service. In relation to these gambling allegations,
My man, just answer the question.
the instinct of these people to think the first thing they should do is try to make money was the wrong instinct, and we have to change that. But it is also a question of leadership, because this isn't just what's happened this week, last week in the Gambling Commission. We saw Partygate earlier in this Parliament. The Prime Minister himself was convicted and fined for breaking the rules which he brought in and imposed on everybody else. And of course, we've seen what happened with the COVID contracts.
So what are you going to do about it?
Money that were made. This takes leadership. What I did when one of my team was alleged to have been involved and investigated by the Gambling Commission, they were suspended with...
Thank you, Stu. Appreciate that. For the pizza fund, I will be ordering pizza on Thursday. I'm not sure if I'm going to be on camera, though, I'll be honest.
Within minutes, because I knew it made it really important to be swift. The Prime Minister delayed and delayed and delayed until eventually he was bullied into taking action.
Sunak,
if you're going to change the culture,
let me get a response. Let me get a response.
So it's an okay answer. He took way too long to get there, though.
Keir Starmer, to those accusations.
Well, it was
Rishi Sunak.
important
The dude is still there. He's been shouting from the start.
to me that, given the seriousness and the sensitivity of the matters at hand, that they were dealt with properly. And that's what I've done. We had an independent internal inquiry into what happened, have taken action and suspended the candidates involved, and I've been crystal clear that they should face the full consequences of the law. But Keir Starmer talks about leadership in politics. That's what Sue's question was at, was a broad question about how to do that. I also think leadership means being straight with people. It means having the courage of your convictions, not changing your mind on every single position that you've taken, and being upfront about what you want to do for the country. That's not what Keir Starmer is doing. He's not being honest with everyone about his plans to raise their taxes.
Right,
I think that will erode
Oh,
trust
so
in
the
politics.
2K line.
That's the
Let's
choice
just stick
at
to the
this
heart
election.
of the question, first of all, because it was sparked by the recent allegations about political betting, and Sue asked how you would restore trust in politics. So if you've acted now on those to withdraw support from those 2 Conservative candidates, what did you find in that investigation?
Well, Michelle, you know there's an independent investigation which is ongoing, which is why I can't say anything further about
He did, Kieran. He did have a point, and then he botched it.
that. You will understand
Yeah, but
that.
we
But
knew
when
about
we
that
had our
one a while
internal
ago.
inquiries, when we found things that were not appropriate, I took action and suspended the candidates. I've been crystal clear. I was furious to
Took
hear
you
about
2 weeks, pal. It took you about 2 weeks to do anything. This is not it.
these things. That's why I've dealt with it. But the choice of this election...
There's five people who have been alleged, I think, to have breached the rules. You've suspended 2 out of 5. You know, like, the investigation isn't finished yet. Your internal investigation. It doesn't make sense. Either all 5 get suspended, or none of them do.
It's about, as Sue said, it's about leadership, it's about integrity in politics. And that's a question about doing what you say. You know, Keir Starmer's made this broader point, but the point is, he's changed his mind on every major position that he's taken. Absolutely. He doesn't have the courage of his convictions and is not being straight with everybody now about his plans, if he wins power, to raise people's taxes. That's not going to do anything to restore trust in politics, and that's a choice for everyone at this election. Continue tax cuts with the Conservatives, or Keir Starmer's tax rises, which he is not being...
Tax cuts with the Conservatives. Where are these tax cuts? You did a national insurance cut, which brought more people into paying income tax because of the fiscal drag. It's capping.
...with everyone about...
The host... this is really bad hosting again. Really bad.
Again, to return to the question, Keir Starmer, the Labour candidate from whom you've withdrawn support, appears to have betted on losing his own election. Do you know if any other candidate has placed similar bets in this campaign?
Well, he was, as you say, investigated by the Gambling Commission because he bet on himself to lose. As soon as the Commission said they were investigating, I suspended him. And I've made very clear to my candidates that I expect high standards in politics. I said last week that the Prime Minister should have taken decisive action. And I said last week, should one of my candidates be investigated by the Commission, then they would be suspended and their feet wouldn't leave the floor. And that's what I did. And so my candidates know I expect the highest standards and that I'll take decisive action.
So Michelle, she's one of the radio hosts of the BBC. I don't know what she's doing.
If they fall below those standards, because
I
am...
Like, honestly, guys, I'm not going to lie. Hosting a debate is not as hard as the BBC makes it look. It really isn't. Like, I would happily have a swing at it.
Do you know
back to Sue's point,
do you know,
I'm absolutely determined to return politics to public service.
Do you know that none of your other candidates...
She seems to be happy with the answer, at least the person who answered the question, Big Sue.
...have placed similar bets.
Important for our country.
Do you know that none of your other candidates have placed similar bets?
Well, I've
Fiona
made
Bruce
clear to
vibes.
my candidates what the standards are, and they've seen by my actions what the consequences are if they fall short of those standards. But the Prime Minister hides behind a process. He could have taken decisive action last week, even the week before, but he eventually got round to it when he was bullied by other people into doing it. That's not leadership, and he talks about integrity. I'm sorry, when you get convicted for breaking the COVID rules, which you imposed on the rest of the country, you really shouldn't be talking about integrity in politics.
That's a good attack line.
Rishi Sunak?
Well, leadership means being straight with people about what you plan to do. I've set out my plans clearly, and I appreciate, actually, that not everyone's going to agree with me on everything, but at least you know where I stand. Now, Keir Starmer is not being straight with you about his plans to raise your taxes. I don't think that's leadership. I don't think that people should surrender their family finances to the Labour Party, and that's the choice for people at this election.
Well, let me just address that, if I may, because we have set out in our manifesto all of our plans.
What?
They're fully funded,
sorry,
they're fully costed.
I was going to mute. Sorry.
That we will not be increasing income tax, national insurance or VAT. What the Prime Minister is doing, he's got a manifesto that's got promises to you and everybody watching which are unfunded because his...
I still got to do the manifesto review, guys, as well.
Chancellor
I was going to do that today, but I saw this pop up.
...has said that the money he's relying on has already been spent. Now, that is the mistake that Liz Truss made. That's what cost so much...
I know, it's actually... This is actually a shambles, you know. This is just... I think it's at Oxford... No, Nottingham Trent or Nottingham University. How this geezer in the background's got away with shouting for this long is beyond me.
People so much across this country, and now we've got to repeat unfunded commitments, lots of promises, but where's the money coming from? The Chancellor himself has
How has no one dealt with this?
The money was spent last year, it isn't available. And if there's 5 more years of this, we're going to have the same as we've got now, a cost of living crisis bearing down on people across this country, really struggling because the economy is broken. And this is the chance at this election to turn the page and start to rebuild our country with a stable economy.
Just ridiculously long non-answers.
Okay.
Well, Michelle, what the Chancellor did this morning was ask his opposite number, Keir Starmer's Shadow Chancellor, to rule out raising all your taxes beyond what they've already announced in the first budget. And the Shadow Chancellor wasn't able to do that today. That's what the Chancellor did today, but you don't have to listen to me.
Yeah.
Just go online, go to the Telegraph website, because we've just found a recording.
I think it's a guy outside the room.
That they have put out there from the Deputy Chancellor from the Labour Party, admitting that their plans will cost hundreds of billions of pounds.
I'm just going to explain something to anyone who hasn't seen this today.
That is going to cost all of you thousands of pounds of tax rises. That's why I say Keir Starmer and the Labour Party are not being straight with you.
Kieran, to be fair, Gareth Southgate's not on the debate stage, so
do not surrender to their tax rises.
Let me just explain. This is a reference to Darren Jones, the Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury, one of your senior Treasury team, who in a recording given to the Daily Telegraph has said decarbonising the British economy will cost hundreds of billions of pounds.
We've set out in our manifesto what we want to do to go to renewable energy, and we've set out how much that will cost, exactly how much is going to be put in, and we've got a column saying how that's going to be funded. Yes, it is absolutely right that we want to get in investors to come alongside that government money.
Probably protesting, yeah. I can't hear exactly what he's saying.
And we've been talking, you won't be surprised by this, to global investors for the best part of 2 years to say that if we put down this money set out in our manifesto, will you come alongside it and put down many more billions of pounds so that in partnership with the government we can make the change that we need?
And again, what are these private companies? What is the return they're going to want to make on their investment?
Hang on. No, let me just finish this.
I'm sure we're going to come back to the same thing later on. I do.
Bruh, she's lost control. She's lost control.
This is your own
If you don't mind, I'm going to get to the next question.
Just be straight with people.
There are people waiting.
How many hundreds is it? Is it 200?
I'm going to turn to the next question now.
Is it 400?
I think the Prime Minister must have put a bet on how many
Yeah, Sunak's coming here looking very condescending, I think.
times he's going to interrupt me.
I do want to turn to the next question because lots of people are waiting and they've got
Yeah, so Starmer got away with not answering that one at all. What was the point of bringing it up? I don't know.
important questions that they would like answers to. If you can hear any noises of, ladies and gentlemen, or anyone at home, there is a protest taking place outside, which is also an aspect of our democracy, and people.
I mean, yeah, but for a TV debate, it's just ridiculous. It's on university campus, like what?
Exercising their freedom of speech. Our next question here comes from Mary
Why not just turn down the mic sensitivity then?
Armstrong.
Evening. I've worked 2 jobs since I was 18, and I'm now 60. And I think
God damn, what is going on out there?
many people don't understand how important and better it is for you to be working hard. I also think too many
Yeah, she's a Tory. This lady's a Tory.
people are on out of work benefits. My question is, what are you going to do to help more people to come off benefits and back into work?
What are you going to do to impact more marginalised people?
Mary, thank you very much for that. Keir Starmer, what are you going to do to get more
Mary,
people
thank you for
off
raising
work,
that.
off
Blood, just let her finish, like, passing the question over to you.
benefits and into work?
Yeah, can I first agree with you that work is, of course, about pay and being able to pay your own way and, you know, support your family, but it is also about dignity and respect.
Might as well say work sets you free at that point.
And my dad worked in a factory all his life. He was a tool maker.
The tool maker back.
And having a secure job for him was really important to his respect and integrity.
Is there a fight going on outside? What is this?
In relation to those that are out of work, my rule is this: if you can work, you should work. And we've got a plan to get people into work, working with businesses to support people in. I think we need to change the job centre and the careers service, because at the moment, when I ask businesses, if you have a vacancy, are you going to the job centre to get that vacancy filled? They say they're not, so we need to do that. The other thing, Mary, that we absolutely
That's not bad. You know, using job centres to advertise jobs is not a bad idea.
need to do is to get the waiting lists down in the NHS, because very many people aren't able to work or to work in the way they want
Yeah, but this is about people who are able to work and can't.
because they're waiting for an operation because of the catastrophic level of waiting lists under this government.
So let's
But you're
hear
absolutely right,
let's
we
hear
need
your
to get
first
people back into
response,
work.
Rishi Sunak, to Mary's question. What are you going to do to get people off benefits?
Mary, there's a clear choice for you and everyone who believes, like you do, the situation isn't right. Because if you want lower taxes and lower welfare, that's what I'll deliver. If you want higher taxes and higher welfare, that's what Keir Starmer will do. So I strongly agree that people are better off in work. It's not just for the financial security it brings you. It's
Not
about the...
not when I went. They don't really. This was a couple of years ago. They don't advertise jobs. Not down here. It's mostly just checking that you've applied for jobs. That's about it.
purpose, the dignity that it brings to people, which you alluded to, and I strongly agree with. The number of people currently out of work on ill health and disability benefits is too high. It's gone up by 800,000 since the pandemic. It's gone up by 60%, the bill, in the last few years. We've got to do something about that. I made a speech about
welfare, you're talking about pensions and things like that as well, which is going to retirees.
this a few months ago. I set out a comprehensive plan to reform the welfare system, to tighten it up so that those who can work do work. We're stricter about those eligibility criteria. That's fair for all of you who are working hard paying your taxes. It's better for those people, and that's what I'll do. But when I announced that, and just again recently, Keir Starmer and the Labour Party opposed every single thing that I set out to deliver what you want. Every single thing. They do not think that you can save a single penny in the growing welfare bill.
Okay.
That's what their numbers show. That's what they've said. So the choice for you is clear. If you want lower welfare and lower taxes, I will deliver that for you. Higher taxes and higher welfare is what you will get with Keir Starmer.
We actually have a related question, so I'm going to bring in Beverly Mackenzie now.
It's two ridiculous questions.
I've worked all my life.
Of course you have.
But had to stop due to illness.
Fair enough.
Disabled people like me get hit in the worst way when we want to get back to work and help.
Okay, I retract being snide earlier. I apologise for that.
But often we can't. How will candidates ensure we're not punished by benefit sanctions?
Thank you very much. Rishi Sunak, so you've said you'd tighten the system, you'd be stricter. What does that mean for people like Beverly?
Yeah, sorry, what was... I couldn't quite hear. Is it Beverly?
Yeah. Beverly.
Yeah, Beverly, look, I actually believe in a compassionate welfare system that supports everyone who genuinely needs it. And you saw me do that during COVID, making sure we got support to the most vulnerable. Right? That will always happen under a Conservative government, always happen under me. But what we won't do is have a system where people are not supported into work if they can work. So what we're going to do is make sure that we reform the fit note, sick note process, which isn't working. It's signing far too many people off as not.
Maybe because they're actually sick. Maybe that's why they didn't signed off. I mean, it's a GP signing them off. I mean, I didn't realise you've got a medical degree, Rishi Sunak. Didn't realise you were a general practitioner.
Fit for work. We're going to look at, when you asked about benefits and sanctions, we're going to provide active support for people into work. But I also think that if
You've had a long time to do that, pal. A very long time.
People have been offered jobs that they can do and that they don't take them, then that's not okay. So after 12 months, what I've said is we will do something about that. If your job coach says to you, look, there's work that you can do, that everyone agrees you can do, there's a job for you that you're fit enough and well enough to do, and you refuse to take it, I don't think that's fair on everyone else after 12 months of support. So we will tighten that up. I think that
you're going to end up working in a care home. That's what they're going to do. They're going to use this to push people into the care sector, because that's where we're struggling for people.
That's fair for everybody. Because
fruit picking, care homes, all of the stuff, all of those kind of jobs. Which there's nothing wrong with those kind of jobs, but what you don't want is someone who's forced to work in a care home, because you're playing with people's lives at that point.
Fundamentally, I think that those people who can work should work. That's, I think, a fundamental tenet of fairness in our system, which most people will agree with. That's why I think we can save money in the welfare bill, because it's forecast to grow at an extraordinary rate over the next few years.
Starmer,
and I want to use that money to support people
Starmer, just
and
one
to cut
second.
your taxes.
What is wrong, if you believe it is wrong, what Rishi Sunak is saying, that if someone is offered a job and they can do that job and they turn it down, that's wrong?
No, there's nothing wrong with that, and I just want to address Beverly's point.
You opposed it when I announced it. You literally opposed it.
If you listen...
job and they turn it down, that's wrong.
No, there's nothing wrong with that, and I just want to address Beverly's point.
You opposed it when I announced it. You literally opposed it.
If you listen to people in the audience across the country more often, you might not be quite so out of touch. Beverly...
Oof. That's a burn.
Beverly, can I just address the point you make? Because it's a really important point, which is very many people with illness or disability do want to get back into work for the very reason that was alluded to before, the respect, the dignity, and the support that it gives them. But it's difficult to do so because they're worried about whether they can do it and whether they'll last a period of months. So what a number of firms are doing, businesses, and I've been to see this myself, and I support this, is having a supported scheme where people can be supported back into work for a number of months to make sure they can make that transition and get back into work. I think that's a really good scheme. That's what we would put into place. But I do have to address this question. The Prime Minister keeps saying he's going to cut taxes. He has raised tax 26 times. Nobody's raised more tax than this Prime Minister.
He got him. That was a stings, doesn't it, moment. That was good. Oops.
Prime Minister
Question about tax. This is a question about getting people back to work. So the numbers have risen considerably since the COVID pandemic. The numbers of people economically inactive
60-year-old bar work. That's ridiculous.
due to long-term sickness
That's what I mean. They're not designed to get you back into work. Not really. They're designed to sanction people who are not in work.
has risen to 2.8
who's in
million. So
charge?
how would you are seeking power. What would you get those numbers down to through the approach you're talking about?
We want to get the numbers right down. We want
what?
to, with a plan to get people back into work. Partly that's supported. Partly it's the changes that we want to make to the job centres to make sure that where businesses and public services, the NHS doesn't go to the job centre when it's got vacancies. They should do, so we want to merge those two services.
The NHS shouldn't go to the job centre when it's got vacancies. Are you an unemployed nurse looking for work? What? Bro, like that... Why? Why do this?
But the other thing, if we're going to get people back into work, is
Thank you, Rosine, for the super chat. Really appreciate it.
we have to tackle these...
Thinning bones, colic disease, and long COVID after ICU. That's awful, I'm not going to lie. Yeah, people aren't supported, I think, in this country. They take illnesses as a joke, I'll be honest.
Terrible waiting list because nearly 8 million people are on the waiting list. And so it's not their fault that they can't get back into work. It's the fault of the government that's put us in this terrible position. We have to address these
fundamentally, there's a very clear choice and there's a very clear dividing line. I think you've got to change the eligibility criteria in the welfare system. You've got to make it clear that people who can work should work. That means looking at all the gateways we have and actually being more rigorous about asking people to provide medical information when they're making these claims, reforming the sick note process, being stricter about saying to people who don't accept a job after 12 months that that's not okay.
Sunak is claiming Starmer voted against it. I wonder what bill he's talking about.
Those are all the practical things that I've set out. I think that's fair. Now, Keir Starmer can stand here tonight and say what he wants. When I made that speech, and you can all go and read it and see what they said, they opposed every single measure.
Why don't you cite it then? Why don't you actually cite what you're talking about?
Just 2 weeks ago, they were asked about it. They said we oppose all those measures. So it's one thing to stand here and say all these things.
At the moment, it's looking like this.
Sources that I made it the fuck up.
Honestly.
You should at least be upfront with people. You don't think my approach...
Won't they need more bureaucrats and civil servants to deal with that? Potentially, but I guess as you ease more people into work, you will deal with a lower amount of people, if that makes sense. So initially, yes.
Is the right one. You are going to have higher welfare under you, and that's why you can't deliver tax cuts the way that I can. And people should not surrender to this.
Will the welfare bill,
the Prime Minister says he's going to do all these
be
things.
higher
They've
under
been
you,
in
Keir
power
Starmer?
for 14 years. Why has he only just thought of this with a week to go before the general election? Honestly, if there's that much wrong with the system, who's the guy in charge of the system?
Again, this is what it goes back to: is if this is the perfect answer to counter Rishi Sunak, is to say your plan isn't working. You've had enough time to implement a plan. You're not that guy, pal. That's all he's got to say. And he's starting landing. He's landing right hands at this point. That's 2 right hands I think he's landed. Some illnesses do last longer than 12 months.
Over the last
Some illnesses last your whole life.
14 years. Well, why is it so bad?
Well, you want to be in charge, but you've got nothing to say to people about what you would do about it.
There's a right hand from Sunak.
Election is about the future.
Sunak's getting applause now. So oh no, I can't even play the Smoke the Pack gif again. That was a good exchange though. That was a good exchange.
Will the welfare bill be higher under you, Keir Starmer?
No, it needs to come down. It needs to come down by getting people back into work with a clear plan, and it needs to come down by tackling the waiting lists so that more people can get back into work, which is why one of the first things that we will do if we're elected in to serve our country, serve being the word I choose, is to put in place 40,000 extra appointments, NHS appointments, each and every week. That's 2 million a year to drive down those waiting lists, to give people the comfort and operations that they need, and to allow them to get back into the economy so that we can grow the economy, which is the thing that's been missing so desperately over the last 14 years.
What Keir Starmer's not telling you is actually most of the people who we're talking about, who Sue asked about originally, aren't on an NHS.
This is actually a shambles, this debate.
That's waiting list. So talking about that isn't an answer to this problem.
Nearly 8
the
million.
answer to this problem.
Yeah, and they're both. You know, on this area, they're both kind of centre right. This is small c conservatism.
Is actually being stricter about the eligibility criteria, making sure that everyone who can work does work, because that's fair to everyone, like Sue, who is working very hard and putting in. That's what I will do. I promise you I will deliver on it. We will cut the welfare bill, the growth in the welfare bill. It is unsustainable. We spend too much on it. I've set out a plan to do so. Labour oppose all of it, so the choice for you is simple. If you want higher taxes and higher welfare, that's what Keir Starmer will do. If you want lower taxes and lower welfare, that's what I will do. Do not surrender to our welfare system to the Labour Party and Keir Starmer.
I'm going to turn to our next question on that note, and this one comes from Steve Curtis.
Good evening, all. We're an island. Why can't we easily close our borders?
Thank you, Steve, for that question.
What?
Keir Starmer.
What's the question?
Good evening, all. We're an island. Why can't we easily close our borders?
What the fuck? What is this? What is this? What's just first question, boring kind of centre question, right? Second question, right-wing question. Third question, kind of a better question. I would say a kind of left question. What is this obsession with immigration? Oh, we're an island. Why don't we just close our borders? Are you stupid? Like, we still have low unemployment. We have low unemployment, and you. God, this guy, fam. Imagine living your life for this long, yeah, and just not understanding anything. This guy's an idiot.
Thank you, Steve, for that question. Keir Starmer.
Steve, the biggest threat to our borders at the moment is the very many people arriving by small boat over the Channel. And they're at record numbers. Since Rishi Sunak became Prime Minister, 50,000 people have come across by small boat. And the government has effectively lost control of our borders. And that means it's not just a border security issue, it's actually a national security issue, because the government's lost control of who's coming and what their background is. Now, I think that nobody should be making that journey across the Channel. And we have to smash the gangs that are running this vile trade. There are gangs that are making a fortune, putting people into boats across the Channel, an absolute fortune. And I think they can be taken down. And Steve, before I was a politician...
Again, safe routes is the answer here, because that kills the need for the smuggling gangs. It's like decriminalising drugs helps deal with drug-related crime and drug dealers and gangs. This is moronic.
I was the chief prosecutor for England and Wales, so I ran all criminal prosecutions in England, Wales, in all of our criminal courts, and we had to deal with terrorist plots and other plots, drug plots and gun plots, which were across various other countries. We grouped together with police and law enforcement.
I don't think it's the fishermen.
Across Europe, and we took down those terrorist gangs. I've seen it done. I've been part of the operations to do it. I do not accept, I will never accept, that the only gangs that apparently can't be taken down...
Yeah, processing the claims, safe points of entry.
Let's turn to Rishi Sunak, because we haven't...
Offshore processing centre is another way you could do it as well.
Heard from him.
We literally allow Ukrainians to apply for asylum when they're not in the UK. I think we allow it for Hong Kong as well. Like, you can expand the scheme. You could do it so people can look to claim asylum from embassies.
Yet on Steve's question, which was, we're an island, why can't we easily close our borders?
Steve, you're right to highlight the issue. It's completely...
Even during COVID, we couldn't close the bloody borders.
Completely unfair what's happening. When people come here illegally, jump the queue, it not only puts pressure on public services, it not only threatens our security...
Typically the people crossing the Channel are young, healthy people. How does it put a strain on public services, like the hospitals?
An affront to that sense of fairness, which is fundamental to our national character, and that's why I've made it a priority to stop the boats. We have made progress.
No, you really haven't.
The numbers have come down over the past 12 months compared to the 12 months before. But in order to fully solve this problem, you need a deterrent. We need to make it crystal clear.
This is where, as the host, you should have the information at hand to prove or disprove that. You really should, considering this was always going to come up.
To people,
especially when you pre-select the questions.
If they come to our country illegally, they won't be able to stay. And that's why, if I'm your Prime Minister on July 5th, The flights will go to Rwanda. We will build that deterrent that multiple other European countries now agree is the right way to deal with this problem, and that's how we solve this problem. If Keir Starmer is your Prime Minister, all those illegal migrants will be out on our streets, and that is the choice for you. Do not surrender our borders to the Labour Party.
Steve, this is complete and utter nonsense.
On the numbers, Keir Starmer, just one moment.
Oh, look at that. The audience are even rating his nonsense answers. Oh my God, Georgia are leading Portugal. Sorry guys, just going to detour quickly, just going to check the football results. Half-time, Georgia are beating Portugal 1-0. Madness. Madness.
I just one moment. I want to clarify something. Small boat arrivals did come down last year, but arrivals so far this year are at a record high. It's more than 13,000 people. Have you lost control, as Keir Starmer has said?
No. The numbers have come down over the past 12 months, as you acknowledge.
Right.
Michelle, but the way to solve this problem is to have a deterrent. And look, I will tell you this. The Rwanda plan is a deterrent. You just have to listen to what the illegal migrants themselves are saying. One of them just said, most of us are still in France due to the fear we have about Rwanda. Another one said,
I mean, literally, the planes aren't going off the ground. I know that some of the people have fled to Ireland. So I think it does have some merit in that. Some people are scared. But evidently they're still crossing the channel, so it's not really working still.
Won't cross the channel until the Rwanda plan is destroyed. If Labour win, the people smugglers are going to need a bigger boat. Don't surrender our borders to the Labour Party.
You would scrap the Rwanda plan.
Record numbers have come under this Prime Minister's watch. Record numbers coming across the channel. And he says it's a deterrent. There are a few hundred that would go on a flight to Rwanda at huge expense to the taxpayer. There are tens of thousands. 50,000 people have come since Rishi Sunak has been Prime Minister. 50,000 across the channel. A few hundred going every year means there's a 99% chance.
So this is what we're looking at here, right? And I don't know why it's so hard for the host to actually have these kind of numbers at hand, right? But you know, this is the BBC. What can we expect from them? So you got 2024. So that number is still higher. That number right now is still higher than actually it's lower than the 23. It's higher than the 23 figure. So Sunak talking about the numbers coming down is untrue. What blood is talking about? Who his source is?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
I don't know. But again, the host. This is not. Honestly, I don't want to be mean, but just the BBC should get Victoria Derbyshire to do everything at this point.
You're not going to Rwanda. Now, I've worked with criminal gangs, Rishi Sunak. I know that they are telling the people they're exploiting there's a 99% chance of not going to Rwanda. That is not a disincentive. That is not a deterrent, and it's not working. If it were working, why are record numbers still coming under your watch, Prime Minister? How on earth can you say it's working? I
do like the fact he's referring to him as Prime Minister, because it does remind people that who's in charge.
In place. The flights could go off. I notice you called the election, by the way, before any flights could actually get off, and it could be tested. An interesting timing.
It's a good point.
But if this was such a deterrent, why is it obviously not working?
You spent all this time when I first got this job saying call an election. Then when we call election, you spend all your time saying why did you call an election? This is about the future. I can tell everyone what I'm going to do with illegal migrants who come to our country. They will be on planes, be sent away because they shouldn't be here. What will you do with the illegal migrants that arrive to the UK? What will you do with them? You've had 3 weeks to think of an answer. What is it?
We've got tens of thousands of people here who've come unlawfully. The Prime Minister says he'll send them all to Rwanda.
Seeking asylum is not illegal, by the way.
The Rwanda scheme takes a few hundred. It would take literally 300 years to get all the people who are here unlawfully to Rwanda. So they're going to stay here.
If elected, what would you do?
What would you do with them?
So at the moment, they're not being processed. So they're sitting in hotels, which you are all paying for. They're not processed, and as a result of not being processed...
Someone's playing music as well. I really hope it's not copyrighted, I swear to God.
That means not a single one, even those that shouldn't be here, can be returned anywhere. So once they've got here under the Prime Minister's scheme, they're here for life. That's an absurd situation to have got into. So, yes, we do need to process
But what will you do with them?
We've got to process the claim. You're sitting there with tens of thousands of people... But just
when
let me finish.
Illegal migrants come to our country, what will you do with them?
Processed their claims.
It's a very simple question.
Well,
I can tell people what I will do with them. I will put them on planes to Rwanda because they shouldn't be able to stay. What will you do with illegal migrants who come...
This is just schoolyard debates. This is you will see better quality in a politics GCSE class.
Our country. What will you...
Why is the host not doing anything? I despair, guys. I know a lot of you guys will be like UK based, right? But the ones who aren't, like the ones who are watching this, it's just, can you believe this? Honestly,
what will you do with them? It's a simple question.
His plan is
what will you do with them?
They need to be processed at the moment.
Processed?
They're not. These.
Yes, processed. Process their claim. The thing you're not doing. The thing that's caused the backlog.
Which means to be clear, will mean most of them will be given asylum. They will get the right to remain in this country.
At the moment, 100% of them are effectively being granted asylum in this country because they can't go anywhere. They can't go anywhere. They cannot. The Prime Minister knows this, and if he thinks I'm wrong, he should say so. Because they're not being processed.
It's a good debate tactic, saying that he agrees with me.
They cannot be returned to where they came from. Can they, Prime Minister? If he wants to correct that, now's his chance to do.
It's a good debate tactic, that.
I'm very clear about where we'll answer. Well, do you know where these people come from?
No, he's not answering the question.
Do you know where they come from? Iran,
you can see.
Syria, Afghanistan. So when Keir Starmer says he's going to return people, is he going to sit down? Are you going to sit down with the Iranian Ayatollah?
This is what he was. That's what Starmer's been asked about recently, about a returns agreement, returning people, and they asked about Afghanistan.
Are you going to try and do a deal with the Taliban? It's completely nonsensical what you are saying.
This is what I mean. Like if you prepare stuff properly, right? Like if you didn't toxify the asylum seeker kind of conversation, you wouldn't be getting questions like this where you look like an absolute mug. Because, based on what you're saying, it makes it look like you're trying to get a deal with despot nations, like nations where there are real, genuine reasons to leave there, just if you're an average citizen.
You are
Look at this guy from the Brexit guy.
You are taking people for fools, right? I think that these people should not stay in our country. They will be on planes to Rwanda. That's what I will do with them. You still can't answer the question. What will you do with them?
All the tens of thousands.
All the illegal migrants who arrive will be processed and put on planes to Rwanda.
50,000.
That is the choice for you. If you think illegal migrants should not be in our country, they should be sent somewhere else to build the deterrent, I will deliver for that for you. Do not surrender our borders to Keir Starmer and the Labour Party. This situation will just get worse. We will become the soft touch of Europe. And as I said the other night, they are queuing up in Calais waiting for a Keir Starmer to be in charge.
So you will send tens of thousands of people who are here and out of the asylum system at the moment. You are promising to send them all to Rwanda.
We will have a number of flights from July through to build this deterrent. That's what I've always said. The principle here is I don't think people who come here should be able to stay. But look, Keir, you talk about this as if you care about the issue, but this is when you ran for the Labour leadership, which wasn't very long ago, you promised to protect free movement. You said you would you promised to close detention centres.
And this is why, all those leadership contest lies come back and haunt you.
Illegal migrants.
Because I don't think he will convince people that, he will deliver on immigration and asylum. And that's one of the, most important things in this country, based on the polls. And that is honestly it just shows you how lacking this country is, that despite the massive cost of living crisis, despite public services falling apart, and all of the myriad of problems we have here, people are just like, nah, immigrants are the problem, bro.
You boasted in that letter of getting illegal migrants more welfare. Like, that's what you actually believe. And that's why you can't trust him on this issue. So I say it again, do not surrender our borders to the Labour Party.
I'm very clear that what we need to do here, we need to get our security of our borders back. They've lost control. 50,000 people have come. We've got to smash the gangs that are doing this in the first place.
Smash the gangs. You know what? I really want to address this, Michelle. We passed a law in Parliament. People have their own mind, right? You're right. We do have to smash the gangs. What does that mean? We passed a law in Parliament. We passed new laws so that our law enforcement agencies could use them. You know what? They've arrested 1,000 criminals and people smugglers. They've sentenced them to hundreds of years, exactly as you would expect us to do. That's what we...
So how many did they arrest?
Law enforcement agencies could use them. You know what? They've arrested 1,000 criminals and people smugglers. They've...
So you got 1,000 people being arrested.
Sentenced them to hundreds of years, exactly as you would expect.
So 1,000 divided by hundreds of years. Thousands. I don't think they're going to jail for that long.
Expect us to do.
Yeah, it's because the host is not doing her job. This is why.
That's what we did.
He's on the offensive. He's on the losing end. He has to make something happen here. This is, it's like in football. You got the losing team here. He's desperate. He's pinging the ball into the box. He's looking for the big man little man combination, the flick on, the long ball, that they're trying to pass it in. He's going for every tactic.
Do you know what? The Labour Party voted against that law. So when you stand there and say smash the gangs, like on every other issue, you say one thing, you do another, you just don't know which Keir Starmer you're going to get. You can't trust him on this issue. Do not surrender our borders to him.
This is the difference between me and the Prime Minister. Before I did this job, I was running the Crown Prosecution Service. I was the Director of Public Prosecution. And it was my responsibility to take down criminal gangs on behalf of everybody in this room, everybody watching, to protect the country. So I know that this can be done. You share the data, the analysis, the intelligence. You have to have a strategy to arrest everybody at exactly the same time. You need to know what...
I mean, has the country stopped doing this?
Evidence is going to be used in which court, where, and which country is going to have the lead on the prosecution. We did it to take down really dangerous terrorist gangs. There was one terrorist gang that involved bringing down 9 planes in the Atlantic at the same time with bombs. That was one of the cases that I had to deal with as a prosecution.
It's a very different kind of threat, isn't it?
No, but these were very sophisticated.
The question was about
very simple question.
This feels like the host and Sunak versus Starmer.
I don't accept this can't be done for the gangs that are running this vile trade.
There are criminals,
right now,
people smugglers that are spending hundreds.
I don't know if it's because I was at work today, guys, but this is so shit.
Of years in our jails because of the laws that the Conservatives passed. When it came to it, the Labour Party opposed those laws. They voted against it.
Just mention the laws, bruv. If you want to look like you're doing a good job, just mention which laws are meant to have done this, because clearly they're not working.
So when he's standing here before you tonight saying, yes, he cares about this, he's going to do about this, just look at his record. This is someone who defended free movement. He campaigned against the deportation of foreign criminals. He can't be trusted on this issue.
Yeah, that free movement thing is a bit of a stinger, that one.
Do not surrender our borders to him.
Thank you both for your responses, and I'm going to turn now to...
Probably the longest question about immigration. Starmer looks uncomfortable. Yeah, it's mainly because Sunak's talking mad shit and Starmer's struggling to kind of refute it, to be honest.
Our next question...
Like I said, this man, he's not prepared for this kind of debate. Like, doing well in PMQs in a moderated debate, with the speaker there, is very different to being here in front of the big crowd. This is Champions League. The floodlights are on now. That's what we're seeing.
Question which comes from Mohammed Mubarak Sheikh.
Hi. You have both made lots of promises, but you haven't set out a clear plan to pay for those promises. Where is the money going to come from?
Oh, another right-leaning question. That's about 4, I think. Yeah, there's not much substance. Another right-leaning question. Jesus Christ, BBC.
You both made lots of promises. You haven't set out a clear plan to pay
we have
for those
a fully
promises.
funded manifesto.
Where is the money going to come from, Rishi Sunak?
This is the last 1v1 as far as I'm aware.
We talked about it, Mohammed, in Sue's question. I think it's right that we make savings from the welfare bill because it's forecast to grow at an unsustainable rate. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's fair. Set out a comprehensive plan. You can go and have a look at it online. And those savings we will use to cut your taxes. And what I want to do is cut taxes for people at every stage of their life. So for everyone in work, we're going to continue cutting national insurance, £900 this year. For pensioners, we have the Triple Lock Plus. We will raise the allowance, delivering a tax cut for pensioners, making sure that the state pension is never subject to income tax. If you're a young couple wanting to buy your first home, we're effectively going to abolish stamp duty. If you have children, you're a family, we're going to expand the generosity of child benefit. Right? These are the tax cuts that I want to deliver. And if you're a small business owner and entrepreneur, we're going to abolish national insurance for the self-employed.
So guys, this is not going to be one of my better streams, honestly. The content here is abysmal.
Those are the tax cuts. That's how we're going to pay for it. And that's the choice for you at this election. You can have tax cuts with the Conservatives, or you can have thousands of pounds of tax rises under the Labour Party, because he's simply not...
That's always been his problem. He's too used to moderated debate.
Being straight with you about what is coming. Mark my words, your taxes are going up if he is in charge.
Our taxes have gone up whilst you've been in charge, big boy.
Yes, Starmer.
False, but Mohammed, I'll answer your question. Everything in our manifesto we've set out...
It's fully funded, fully costed.
...all of our plans. It's a manifesto for growing our economy, for creating wealth, to make sure our country is better off.
You'll get more sense rating out of drunk people, honestly.
Everybody within the country is better off. It's got clear columns setting out how much each of our plans is going to cost, and then a column saying where that money is going to come from, so that everything is fully costed and fully funded.
I don't know where this is, because I read the manifesto. It does not have that. To be fair, yeah, I talk about Swinney in relation to the guy you could have had in Stephen Flynn.
We've got very strong fiscal rules.
But also, his performance was not good. Objectively, Akija, objectively, no one can say John Swinney had a good performance unless you're speaking relative to Ed Davey and Sunak and Starmer. That's the only way.
Because we want economic stability, which is what we've been missing in recent years. And the reason for that, Mohammed, because
tomorrow's the US debate. Oh, can't wait for that exciting stuff.
This is really, really important, is that we know what happens if unfunded tax cuts are made, because
That's not even true, though. If it's like the market was spooked because everyone knew those sorts of tax cuts she was pushing was not going to grow the economy, and there was no chance of return on investment. Like, this is nonsense.
Trust tried that experiment on
It's relative, Akis. It's relative.
The country. And we're all paying the price for that. And when she was elected as leader of the Conservative Party, Rishi Sunak said we should unite behind her. I don't think we should unite behind her.
Look, Akis, your boy was shit. Like, let's be honest. Like, he had a very mid performance. Let's just accept it and move on. Like, he was not. John Swinney was not good. He did not have a great performance. Like that. That's it. Done. Like, you just got to accept it and move on. He's got to do a lot better in the future if he's going to lead the party and go into debates that are outside of Scotland.
I think we should learn the lessons, which is why I'm not prepared to allow an incoming Labour government ever.
Yeah, he still won compared to shit. If you're winning in the Scottish League, no one cares. If you can win the Champions League, people give a shit. That's it. You can be big dog in a small pond. That's fine. But relative to the actual people you have in the party, Swinney was not good. The two in charge of the Westminster SNP, they're much better at debates than Swinney. Not even close.
To inflict that kind of damage on people across the country, because people.
If you can't be critical of the people within your party, you will never improve as a party. You will allow mid people to run your party who will have bad performances or average performances, and your party will never advance because you're willing to accept people who are average at best, who struggle under basic questions, who aren't prepared properly and look silly in front of crowds. That's what will happen. That's what we're literally witnessing here.
People are still paying the price. Many people on a mortgage now, who've come off a fixed rate mortgage, are now paying hundreds of pounds more because of the damage done to the economy. But Rishi Sunak hasn't learnt the lesson, because his manifesto has got commitments in there that are unfunded, because his Chancellor has said that the money he says he's going to use has already been spent.
So we've heard.
And everybody knows you can't spend the same money twice.
So
you're going to go round. If we have 5 more years of this, we're going to go round and round in circles.
Yes, but
we're going to end up exactly where we are.
Just before you respond, because each of you had a say on that, just before you respond, I'm going to make clear that Mohammed's not alone in thinking that neither of you have set out a clear plan to pay for your promises. The IFS think tank said this week that you are both your parties are ignoring raw facts, and that huge decisions need to be made, which in all likelihood will mean either higher taxes or worse public services.
Well, actually, the IFS also said that it's right to identify welfare as a challenge that needs to be addressed, and the IFS also acknowledged that when the Conservatives previously set out savings that they would get from the welfare bill, the IFS didn't think it would happen, and in fact they were delivered, and I'm sure BBC Verify will put that quote on their website. But look, 2 years ago...
He loves mentioning BBC Verify. He loves it.
I warned repeatedly about what Liz Truss's economic policies would do to our country, even if it wasn't what people wanted to hear at the time. I was right then. And that's why you can trust me now. That's why you can trust me now when I say that the Labour Party's policies will mean all your taxes are going to go up by thousands of pounds. It is in their DNA. Mark my words. Your pension, your council tax, your home, your car, you name it, they will tax it, which is why he cannot rule out raising your taxes. He's been asked multiple times, will he change the council tax bands? He won't rule it out. I'll ask him again, but I'm going to tell you, do not surrender your family finances to Labour's tax rises.
He's going for this surrender angle as well. Don't surrender the borders to the Labour Party. Don't surrender your finances to the Labour Party. I don't know if this is sticking to people. See, that could prioritise cheese from the moon for everyone on Thursday, tea times, it's irrelevant. He might not even have his... Yeah, true that.
Address this directly, because the Prime Minister said he warned the country about Liz Truss and the damage that she was going to do to our economy. And then in the next breath, he said we must unite behind her and support her. Why on earth would you unite behind someone that you say was going to do that damage?
Jeremy Corbyn.
It's like to fall in behind a leader of your party.
But he's repeating the problem.
Yeah, he's just walked straight into that one. This guy's so dumb. He's like, he can't even think one move ahead. He can barely think one move ahead. He'd be the easiest player to play in chess because he's not thinking straight. He's not thinking straight. Oh, yeah. Do you remember when you backed Liz Truss? It's like, well, you backed Jeremy Corbyn. Honestly, these guys are just... There's no strategy. There's no brain capacity.
Problem. He's repeating the problem. He said unite behind...
This is their guy. The Labour Social. All of these guys, they push this man as being someone who's bright and strategic and forensic. I've been telling you guys for about a year. He's not good in interviews. He's not good under intense questioning. Even in softball interviews, he's always timid. He's timid. He doesn't look right. And this is what happens. You don't get the match practice in. That's what happens. You don't challenge yourself. You're not challenged by people in your party. You're not challenged by people in the media. When it comes to the game time, when it comes to the big tournament, you're soft. You're not prepared. You get found out.
She's one of his candidates, and his election pitch to you seems to be: my predecessor, a Tory Prime Minister, broke the country.
Doesn't mean he can't do the business. I mean, my guy, like, he's clearly, like, when you look at what Starmer has pushed, yeah, when you look at the policies and the ideals he has pushed, from what I have seen, he can't do the business. He really can't.
Did huge economic damage. Please vote Tory. Now you're going to have to decide whether that's persuasive. He's now openly admitting the damage that the Tories have done to the economy and saying, please vote for him.
No,
that's the last thing we need in this country after the damage that's been done.
When it comes to the economy, I was right then. And since I've been your Prime Minister, inflation is back to normal, the economy's growing faster than our competitors, wages are rising.
This Liz Truss angle is just not working right now.
Energy bills are falling, we've started cutting your taxes.
Yeah, the welfare.
And I will keep cutting your taxes. That is my
You have not cut taxes, though, not really. The national insurance cut drags more people into paying income tax. That's all you've done.
That's a choice at this election. Their taxes that he wants to put up on you are coming. He won't rule out revaluing your council tax bands. Every pensioner that is watching should realise that under a future Labour government, for the first time in our country's history, the state pension will be subject to a retirement tax.
Sunak's really on the attack here. First came here, Sunak winked at Starmer and said, let's get this charade over. I don't know about that.
That's what their plans are. Those are the numbers, black and white. We're not going to do that. We're going to have the triple lock plus. But for the millions of pensioners that are watching...
Yeah, fuck the young people. Big up the pensioners, that's what he's saying.
Be very worried, because you're going to face a retirement tax under the Labour Party.
Just don't insult people by putting out falsehood. You mentioned the IFS.
Which one's the fault?
He keeps saying we're going to raise taxes.
Sorry, can you confirm?
He obviously has put a bet on interrupting me, hasn't he?
Will the state pension be subject to income tax under a future Labour government? The only way for it not is for you to match our triple lock plus. So maybe you can change policy here tonight. Will you match our triple lock plus and ensure that state pension is never subject to income tax? Yes or no?
The position on the state pension that we've set out is exactly...
it's a yes or no.
Hang on, we need to hear this response.
I think you should show some respect to the audience who want to know...
Maybe you should answer the fucking question then. That will show some respect to the audience.
I've got to say about this without constantly being interrupted. It really isn't the way to do the debate.
What's the answer to the question about whether you'll match what they're going to do on pensions?
The position on pensioners and tax, or pensions on tax, that we've set out is exactly the same. It is the position of the government at their last budget. It is their position. The Prime Minister now says, oh, I'm going to change that. I'm going to change all that. When asked where the money is coming from, his Chancellor says the money is being spent, it isn't there. That is making the same mistake again. Can I just address the IFS point, though, because I think that is really important.
If you're a pensioner, you should know there is a retirement tax coming for you, capital R, capital T, if he is your Prime Minister.
He can promise
for the first time in our
20
country's
tax
history,
cuts. He can't tell us how
pensioners are going to be paying tax because he won't match our triple lock plus.
I thought pensions were subject to income tax, were they not? One of you guys in the chat would know. I thought pensions were subject to income tax.
I'm your Prime Minister. That won't happen, and that's what I'll deliver for you. As I say it again, do not surrender your finances to their tax rises.
You've got a very brief response, then I want to go to the next question.
Well, pensioners are not going to be better off with the Prime Minister who's making promises that he can't keep because they're not funded. That's exactly what Liz Truss got wrong. We cannot... There's one thing that we cannot repeat at this election. Please do not...
Yeah, it looks like you do. It looks like you do pay income tax on any income over your personal allowance for after you've retired. But I don't know if that's your pension amount or... If you have to find a pay... Oh, I don't know. I'll defer to someone in the comments.
Not go back to Liz Truss Mark II with this Prime Minister because the same damage will follow. If you can't say...
It is funded.
We're going to end this particular topic here.
The reason you can't fund it is because you think that you can't...
This host is awful. Just get Victoria Derbyshire. Why they didn't have... Imagine benching your best player. Imagine you benching your best player. Like, Victoria Derbyshire would have had this... like, honestly, it would have been done. Like, they would not get away with this at all. At least they dealt with the protesters, but this is shocking, guys. I'm honestly just... I'm kind of embarrassed to stream this at this point.
We've still got lots of topics to get through, so I'm going to turn to the next question.
That's why I can.
Thank you. This next question is from Karen Duran.
Good evening. I'm a children's nurse at a local hospital. I see families affected by libraries and children's centres closing. How will you help councils after Nottingham City Council has effectively gone bankrupt?
Oh, that's a good one. This is a very good question. This is a very good question because it's under the Conservatives that all of these councils gone bankrupt. You pay it when you collect your pay again. It's a different tax. Okay. Yeah, she's good. Arguably she's one of the best in the country. Hands down. Probably in the top 3. Easily in the top 3. The big 3.
And the council here has been run by Labour since 1991. Keir Starmer.
Yes, and I'm very concerned about the situation because I think anybody looking at a council which has run out of money is concerned about the basic services.
I mean, there are Conservative councils that went bankrupt as well, and they received much better funding than the non-Conservative ones.
Whether it's libraries or other support that councils have to put in place. And this is a position for councils of all political stripes. There are Conservative-run councils that have struggled for money and gone bankrupt as well because of the lack of adequate and proper structured funding from the government. You asked what we would do about it, and I think it is important for us to set out what we would do if we came into office. We would change the way the payments are made to councils. At the moment, council leaders are saying they're made on a yearly basis, so we can't make the most effective use of the money that's available to us. If they're on a longer term, we could make much better use of that. Secondly, they're saying if you could do what the Conservatives promised but didn't actually do, which is to stop no-fault evictions, that would have a massive help for councils as well. Because when people lose their home through no fault of their own, quite a lot of them end up having to have support of a local authority. I don't think you should have no-fault evictions. I think we should actually get on and get rid of them.
That's good. That's a good answer.
On your point about council funding, a multi-year funding plan doesn't give more money necessarily, does it? Are you saying there is more money that would come to local authorities under a Labour government?
Okay, good
if you
follow-up.
go for a 3-year settlement, it means the available money can be used better because any council leader will tell you that trying to make the best use of the money within the constraints of a 12-month period doesn't work. So it's better use of existing money. But look, I'm not going to...
So you would give the money over the 3 years, or you'd give them 3 years worth of budget up front? What's he saying?
And say there's some magic wand that I can wave the day after the election and find money that isn't there. Huge damage has been done to our economy. It is going to take time. That's why our manifesto is a manifesto for growing our economy, for creating wealth, to making sure that...
How are you going to grow the economy?
We can make sure all of our public services, whether that's councils or others, are properly funded, providing the services that people expect and actually, frankly, deserve, which is not the case at the moment. Let's get Rishi Sunak's
response. How will you help councils after Nottingham City Council's effectively gone bankrupt?
Karen, my first job in government was being local government minister, so I was responsible for councils, and they do an extraordinary...
Now, was this the job role where he took money from deprived areas and gave them to Tory areas? Is that the job role where he did this in?
Job. And much as people focus on national politics, actually, most politics is local. It's what's happening in your street, your neighbourhood, your community. And the services that you mentioned are so important, particularly those that concern families and children. One of the things that I do want to do is actually roll out family hubs. as we've been doing over the past few years, which are special places where whole families can come and get the advice and support they need, particularly the most vulnerable families. Look, and in terms of funding councils, we've recently announced just over £500 million of extra funding for councils, particularly for social care, which is where some of the big pressures are in children's services, which you alluded to. And we'll continue to work with councils to provide them the support they need. But you mentioned Nottingham, right? And that is a glimpse of the future, right? Nottingham City Council bankrupt under Labour. Birmingham City Council...
Okay, Wokington Council, how many billions of debt is it under? We covered the video last year, I think. Last year, there are Tory councils that have been given tremendous loans from central government, have squandered it, billions of pounds worth of debt for a council, billions.
Largest council in the country, in fact the largest in Europe, not just bankrupt, but as a result, everyone in Birmingham is now paying a 20...
And that, the Birmingham bankruptcy is partly down to when I think the Conservatives ran it and they did a lot of gender discrimination. So under the Pace settlement, the council had to pay back some of the money, or a lot of the money.
20% higher council tax bill. And that is a snapshot of what will happen if Keir Starmer is in power and across the country. As Labour always do, they run out of everyone's money, they bankrupt the economy in 2010, they bankrupted Birmingham...
Stop pouting and give an answer. Come back with something.
Bankrupted Nottingham, and that's why everyone in Birmingham is paying a 20% higher
They did, yeah.
Labour always do. It's just
They did, yeah. They became a monopoly people. I don't know if Roshin's still here because she watched the video that I did on it. It was a good video. And I say that as the person who made the video, yes. But that they did lose it speculating on flats.
Appetizer of the...
Excuse me, on real estate. On real estate.
Higher taxes that are going to come under a future Labour government. Do not surrender your local council and our finances to them.
Okay, don't surrender the borders. Don't surrender your pensions. Don't surrender your finances. Don't surrender your local governments to the Tories.
Councils like Woking and Thurrock were Conservative when similar problems first emerged.
What do you say about that? Conservative councils in exactly the same problem. What do you say about that? And I have to
Everyone
say,
in Birmingham-
a Prime Minister gloating about the fact that councils are struggling and the impact that you know
higher
of.
council tax.
He's responsible.
You have to believe me, you can go and check as a result of their financial mismanagement. Right? The same thing...
So Thurrock and Wokington mismanaged?
Happened in Nottingham, right? That's what you get with the Labour Party. You remember what happened last time they were in office. They run out of your money, they bankrupt the country, and you all pay for it in higher taxes. And that is the choice for you at this election. Right? We are making progress. The economy is growing. Taxes are now coming down. The financial security that you want, I can deliver. But if we put all that progress at risk with them, your family finances are going to get hammered. Your taxes are going to get whacked.
I'm not sure who's winning this debate, but I can tell you the biggest loser here is me. Honestly, this is just so bad.
And that is the choice for you at this election. Do not surrender to their tax rises.
Okay, thank you both. Just before we get to the next question,
She didn't even let him come back. Why didn't you let Starmer come back and answer that? What?
To remind everyone what...
This is some of the worst hosting I've ever seen in the history of the game.
That we have got more questions coming in this prime ministerial debate, but online on the BBC live page you'll be able to see what BBC Verify are...
Good evening, gentlemen. Mr Sunak, I think you made a fair job of being Chancellor, but you're a pretty mediocre Prime Minister. Sir Keir, I think that your strings are being pulled by very senior members of the Labour Party. Are you two really the best we've got to be the next Prime Minister of our great country?
I mean, evidently, yeah. These are the two that were elected by their parties, the two biggest parties. So if you want to actually have some influence, you need to get involved at the leadership stages. But unfortunately, because of the first past the post system, yeah, these two are the best that we have, unfortunately. And they're both washed. Yeah, he should have been, honestly. But this, like, guys, like this, I mean, like, if he put the media training in early on, if he learned how to debate, how to actually answer questions properly, how to combat bad arguments, or how to come out of situations where you've kind of messed up, he would be in a much better position now. He's going to win this election by default. He's going to win this election by default, and it looks pathetic. It looks pathetic, honestly.
Rishi Sunak.
Well, Rob, look, I can understand your frustration, everyone's frustration, because the last few years have not been easy. We've dealt with a lot as a country. I'm not saying we've got everything right. I certainly would be the first to acknowledge that. But I've been your Prime Minister for
I'd ask what he got wrong.
18 months. And in that time, we've got inflation down from 11% with all the damage it was doing to the cost of living back.
Under whose watch was inflation 11%, pal?
To target. The economy in the first quarter of this year, fastest growing in the G7. Wages rising faster than prices for almost a year now. And my primary job was to deliver that economic stability. So
you know when the BBC hosts debate show, do you think they're told, just don't ever speak, just be invisible, don't fact check anything, and we'll let the BBC Verify team do stuff? Do you reckon that's how it works?
I could start cutting your taxes. That is the journey we're now on. So whatever your other frustrations, the choice for you at this election is about the future. If you want lower taxes, if you want your borders secure, as Steve was asking before, if you want a sensible approach to net zero, if you want your pension protected with a triple lock plus, that is what I will do for you. Right? This is a serious election with consequences for you and your family. I get the frustrations, but think about the choice. Allow me to finish the job I've started, cut your taxes, protect your pension, secure our borders. Because if Keir Starmer and the Labour Party are in charge, your taxes are going up, our borders are going to be insecure, you're going to be saddled with bills as he reverses my net zero changes, and every pensioner is going to face a retirement tax for the first time in history. And that is the choice that you should have in your mind.
Keir Starmer.
Robert,
Can't believe they're applauding the biggest load of garbage.
Robert, earlier in my career, I worked in Northern Ireland with the police in Northern Ireland as part of the work out of the Good Friday Agreement. And with a team, I set out to change the police service in Northern Ireland to make sure it gained the confidence of all communities in Northern Ireland, which was a really important part of the peace process. So I said what we would do, and we delivered. I then ran the Crown Prosecution Service for 5 years with 7,000 staff. I said we would improve the way we dealt with violence against women and girls. I said we'd do it, we made the change, and we got on with it, and we made that change, and it was more successful at the end. I came into the Labour Party to lead it 4.5 years ago, and I said we will change our party to make sure that we are a party that can put a credible proposition before the country for changing the country, and that will always say, country first, party second. I've been there, I've done it, I've changed it. What I'm now asking for is the opportunity to change our country for the better, because we've had 14 pretty awful years. 14 years when I think most people would say we've ended up now with almost everything not working very well, worse than it was 14 years ago when this government came in. Most people not feeling better off. And this is a choice election, because if we go on for another 5 years of this under Rishi Sunak, that is not going to change. That isn't going to change. So this is the opportunity to turn the page, to rebuild our country, rebuild our public services, rebuild our economy, and make sure that we can genuinely say to ourselves we're a better country, better run, proper public services.
Honestly, I can't lie, I'm falling asleep, guys. I just... This is astonishingly bad.
And people feel better off. Now, I've done that sort of change.
I kind of wish we could have watched Graham's stream to see him glaze Starmer, honestly.
I'm just going to come back to the question, because I suspect that Robert Blackstock knows your background. He certainly knows that you've been Chancellor. He's probably familiar with your arguments, and he still says, are you two really the best we've got to be the next Prime Minister of our great country? Now, polling does suggest that there's no great enthusiasm for either of you.
That's true.
Do you recognise that? Do you hear it on the campaign trail? Are you aware of that?
Michelle, that's what I said. I said to Rob, I recognise his frustrations.
It's more personal than that, isn't it? He's talking about both of you.
But there's a choice for everyone, right? There's a choice for everyone.
Clown number 1 and clown number 2.
Right, Keir Starmer talks about change. You don't get change unless you've got a plan to deliver change. Just saying it isn't going to bring about any change. And as you've heard tonight, there's no plan to cut your taxes, no plan to reform the welfare bill, no plan to deal with illegal migration, right? That's the reality of it. Yes, there will be change. It won't be change you like. It will be change when your taxes are going up, when we've become the soft touch of Europe for illegal migrants, when pensioners are paying tax for the first time. That's the change that is coming. So don't surrender to that, because your families are going to pay the price.
I think this question of enthusiasm is really important that you put to us, because I'm not surprised that after 14 years of this, people feel that the hope's been beaten out of them because the country is in such a state. They've had loads of promises made to them at the
you're not offering any hope whatsoever.
Last election about what would happen, which haven't been delivered on. That does and beat the hope out of people. The very first question was about integrity in politics. And again, people haven't seen that integrity. You've had Partygate, you've had the breach of COVID rules, you've had
You had a man who broke almost all his leadership pledges.
The contracts for COVID, the instinct of some people to think the first thing in COVID I'm going to do is try to make money. Same with the Gambling Commission nonsense over the last few weeks. So this is an opportunity to restore that hope. I don't think we can do that by making sort of grand promises of things that can't be delivered. I think it's the ordinary hope of working people. My family was working class. The ordinary hope of...
I mean, I don't think your family was working class, I'll be honest. I don't, especially back then, given that I think his dad owned the factory as well. I don't think he would have been classed as working class, given that both his parents worked. Whilst his mum was well, I think.
Yourself, getting on for your family, getting on for your community and getting on for your country. It has to be rooted, if we're going to restore hope, in my view, in returning politics to service. The sense that you come into politics to serve.
Okay, and on that note, our next question, which is from Rachel Webster.
Good evening. How can I ensure that if I vote for either of you two men, you'll put women's interests first?
This is going to go into the anti-trans stuff. This is going to become an anti-trans thing. This is going to get bad.
Yes, Starmer.
That's what that question was.
Thank you very much for that.
And I want the audience to remember, all of you guys to remember, the BBC handpicks these questions.
I have in my team as partners with me very, very good, strong women that will deliver for the country. Rachel Reeves would be the first woman Chancellor if we're elected into government. She worked, as you know, in the Bank of England and is very, very keen and strong on the fiscal rules and what we need to do for our economy. I've got Angela Rayner, my deputy, who, again, has an incredible background.
The person you keep briefing against, sure.
Coming from a difficult background, where was a care worker for many years and now deputy leader of my party. And I'm very proud of her and these people and there are plenty of others, Yvette Cooper, Bridget Phillipson, you name it, really good, strong women who'll be part of my team. I think that leadership is about empowering your team and making sure it's a team.
So why do you keep briefing against Rayner then?
On the pitch that are all batting and working together, and that's the way I lead, not suggesting for a moment that I'm the one with all the answers, but knowing that if I lead my team and bring my team into this, and we work as a team and will serve as a team if we get the opportunity to do so.
My man just said team about 50 times.
I will do it with some really fantastic, wonderful women who...
Well, the fiscal rule is being implemented by a woman, so, and she's going to be very iron disciplined to the fiscal rule, a strong discipline to it, because she's a strong woman. So that's what the fiscal rules have got to do with strong women, I guess.
I've been on this journey for me for 4.5 years, changing our party to put it before the country with that, essential principle, country first, party second.
Rishi Sunak.
What? He didn't even answer the question. He's like, I've got women in the cabinet. What? He didn't even answer the question properly.
How would you ensure you'd put women's interests first?
Yeah, so I do.
He's going to mention trans stuff.
Rachel. Probably the easiest thing I can tell you is that I have 2 young daughters. And that's why you can trust me, because as a dad, first and foremost, rather than...
I think Starmer also has daughters, no?
Prime Minister, I want them to grow up in a country which is safe.
Do you reckon he's going to say Starmer doesn't know what a woman is? Do you reckon he's going to say it, guys?
For them, when they become teenagers and can walk around on their own, making sure,
they'll be safe in California,
on the streets, that our communities are safe for women and girls is really important to me. I want to make sure that they have the health that they need, and that's why we've been making changes to things like HRT and maternity care in hospitals. But I also want to make sure that when they grow up and have jobs and start a family, that they're supported too, which is why we're rolling out 30 hours of free childcare for every working...
I think the nursery said those plans are untenable.
...parent from the time that their little one is 9 months old to when the toddler goes off to school at 4 years, and that will make a big difference to families up and down the country. But that's why I said, so I can go into lots more policies, but I want my girls to grow up in a country where the sky...
Starmer's grandfather was a toolmaker.
...is the limit for their ambitions. There is nothing that they can't do because they're women, and that's the kind of place that I believe in.
So non-answer again.
I'm I'm going to bring in a related question because this came to us via the BBC's Your Voice, Your Vote website. It was from Vicky in Oxfordshire who asks this. Will you protect women's right to single-sex spaces from...
Yes, I knew it. Oh, you could tell where this one was going. They teed it up perfectly. It was going to become an anti-trans debate. They've teed it up perfectly. The BBC wanted this to happen. They've handpicked these two questions.
All males, regardless of if they hold a GRC, a gender recognition certificate. Rishi Sunak?
Fucking knew
yes,
it.
unequivocally. And we will do that by changing the law so that the Old Equalities Act recognises that sex means biological sex, and that will allow us to deliver on what Vicky wants, which is to protect female-only spaces, female-only services. It's crystal clear for you there is a choice on that question at this election, because Keir Starmer is not matched my pledge to reform the Equalities Act.
This is what I mean, guys. This is what you call. I think Chomsky would call this manufacturing consent. This is literally the public broadcaster giving tee-up questions, and they know exactly what the answer is going to be.
New law. That is the only way to deliver on what Vicky says, and the reason he won't do that, I don't know, but he can explain, is because he's not sure, like I am, that when it comes to these matters, sex means biological sex, and that's how you protect female-only spaces and services.
Keir Starmer?
Yes is the answer to the question. It's very important that we protect women's spaces. I saw this firsthand when I was Chief Prosecutor back in 2008 to 2013. I was working with groups who were supportive of women who'd been subjected to domestic violence and sexual violence, and saw for myself just how important it is to have those women's spaces. Same in hospitals and in sport. So yes to that answer. But what I will also say is that I do recognise that there are a small number of people who are born into a gender that they don't identify with, and I will treat them, as I treat all human beings, with dignity and respect. And I'll tell you for why.
Surprisingly, the audience supported that one.
I'll tell you for why. Because if you don't, you end up with the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom standing in Parliament making an anti-trans joke in front of the mother of a murdered trans teenager. I will never, ever allow myself to be put into that position.
He's done well there, I think. He's done okay. I'm no expert on trans issues, but I think that was actually a good answer. He's cooked him with that one.
That's not what I did. I was pointing out that you've changed your mind on this question multiple times. But to answer Vicky's question...
No, you did. You made a trans joke. The mother of, I think her name was Brianna Gray, she was not happy.
You can't deliver on what Vicky wants. So everyone who does want female spaces protected has to be prepared to change the laws that the Equalities Act recognises that sex means biological sex. It's pretty straightforward. Now, Keir Starmer says that he believes in that, but he won't change the law to do it. So he's not being straight with you again. Well, right? Saying one thing and doing another. You won't change the law to recognise that sex means biological sex, so you cannot say to Vicky and everyone else who cares about this issue that you will actually ensure that their spaces are protected.
If he'd been in as many support centres that I've been in for those that have survived sexual violence and domestic violence, he would know very well it is possible to do it. It is being done. I've supported it being done when I was Chief Prosecutor. I've always believed in that principle of women's spaces. That's going back to 2008.
Yeah, well, welcome to my life, pal.
Way before this latest iteration of the debate, because I could recognise for myself just how important it was to have that space, women-only space, biological women-only space, particularly in that area, but also in other areas.
How do you ensure it? Just a second. Yeah. I mean, Rishi Sunak, how do you ensure it without changing the Equalities Act?
It's provided for under the Equality Act. It is actually spelled out, but also in other areas.
How do you ensure it? Just a second. I mean, Rishi Sunak, how do you ensure it without changing the Equalities Act?
It's provided for under the Equality Act. It is actually spelt out as one of the examples given in the Act. It always has been. And fabricating a difference here in a situation where actually we should be trying to find common ground and work together. Well, I'm proud of the record of my party on women's rights. We've done amazing things in terms of equality under Labour governments, made a massive difference to millions of lives. There's much more work to do on women's equality going forward. But the only way I think we can make that progress is if we change the way that we do politics, stop this business of always trying to divide everybody, and actually use the opportunity of leadership, which is what I would do, to say the job of the leader of the country is to bring people together. These are difficult discussions, different opinions, of course, but the role of the leader of the country is to bring that together so that the country itself is less divided.
Well,
one of the issues for me is with sadness, is the fact that over the last 14 years, there's been this tendency on almost every issue to try to find the points of difference and division, rather than doing what we're actually really good at as a country, which is bringing people...
My guy, you literally you're literally saying, like, talking about deporting, like, refugees from Bangladesh and stuff like that. Like you are the one using divisive language as well. Like that, I'm going to cover that in a separate video, but it's not great. There are large parts of the Bengali community that are very, very frustrated by Labour, given what Starmer has said, and also the Jonathan Ashworth, I think his name is.
Before we move on.
This is about the courage of your convictions and principles, right? I believe when it comes to these matters, sex means biological sex. Of course we should have compassion and tolerance for people who are going through questioning that, but fundamentally, when it comes to women's safety, women's only spaces, sex means biological sex for me. That is the only way to make sure you can deliver the protections that Vicky wants. And on this question, Keir Starmer, when one of his own female MPs made...
Duffield, he's talking about Rosie Duffield, I think.
...that point a while ago, he said that she was wrong. She was hounded, right? He said she was wrong. Now, he's now changed his mind on that question, that it goes back to trust, it goes back to having the courage of your convictions. I get that not all of you will agree with my position, right? But I'm being clear with you. Sex means biological sex. You have to change the Equalities Act to deliver the security of women's spaces and women's services. That's what I believe the right thing for our country is.
Can you respond
and
to
if you
that
don't
point,
agree with that, that's fine,
relates
but that's
to
what I will do.
one of your MPs, Rosie Duffield?
The Prime Minister knows perfectly well that this is all set out in the Equalities Act already. The specific instance of safe space. It's set out. Read the legislation. Look at the notes under the legislation. It's been there for years. Don't just use this as a political football to try to divide people across the country.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We'll move on to our next question. And this
Actually, he did really well there.
one is from Judy.
It's rare praise from me. I think Starmer did quite well.
Good evening, gents. I own a jazz vinyl record business with my partner. Post-Brexit, we have lost 90% of our business with Europe. How can we mend our broken trading relationship with Europe?
Okay. 90% of Julie's business with Europe has been lost. Now, Keir Starmer, you were a Remainer. Rishi Sunak, you argued and voted for leave. How can we mend our broken trading relationship with Europe?
Well, Julie, first of all, thank you for doing what you do. My mum was also a small business owner. I grew up in a family that had a family business. I know how hard it is. I know what the struggles are like, and our economy is built on people like you.
What struggles, bro? Your dad is a GP, like, you always had money.
And you deserve all our support and admiration and praise for doing what you are doing. I'm sorry things have been difficult. Right? We had the referendum, and now his focus should be on making sure we make the best of all the opportunities. In an economy-wide...
Where are you going to sell the vinyls to? China, to Bangladesh, to India? Who's buying these vinyls, bro?
We're actually doing very well now at exporting around the world. But in order to help you, I have two specific things that I can do that will help. One of them is to make sure that we cut your taxes on business rates. When I talk to small retailers like yours, I think you said you had a premises. The thing that everyone talks to me about is business rates. That's why we've cut business rates for small retail, restaurants, pubs, shops across...
I think that's Labour Party policy as well, to cut business rates for, like storefronts.
The country,
like brick and mortar stores.
On Wales, they haven't done that,
Julie's
so everyone's taxes are going up.
And then the second, trading relationship
and the second thing we'll do for you, for all those people like you who are self-employed and others in small businesses, I want to abolish your national insurance.
This is the refuse to answer questions challenge.
So that you have more financial security. Now, I'm the person that has made sure that we have good relations with Europe. You can all see that, and we will continue to do so. But the best way I can help your small business and the hundreds of thousands of...
That one about the relationship with Europe is actually... He's not wrong there with the Windsor Framework and all those weird kind of couple photos he took with Maloney. That was weird. No, vinyl isn't dead. Vinyl's actually coming back, I think. It's the most superior form of audio quality, I believe.
Like
or it's pretty far up there.
Yours is to continue to cut your taxes, because that's how we'll give you financial security. That's the choice for you at this election.
He says he's going to cut national insurance. That's £46 billion. £46 billion has just been spent in the last minute without saying where that money's coming from. That money on national insurance is used for our NHS and for our pensions. So, Prime Minister, if you're going to cut that money, that national insurance, those 4 to 6 billion, is it the NHS or is that pensioners that are going to pay for it?
So far, neither of you have answered Julie's question, which is about how we can mend our broken trading relationship with Europe.
Let me address that, because the Prime Minister says, I think he's just said the economy is all very well, going very well. I don't think millions of people across the country feel it's going very well. I think
the question's about Brexit.
They think it's going very badly, and it's hitting them. But Julie, in relation to the EU, I did vote to remain. I campaigned to remain, but we left. We've left the EU. We're not going back to the EU. But I do not accept that we can't get a better deal than the one that we've got, because too many businesses are in the position you're in, which is, you put yourself into your business, you put your money into your business, you take huge risks for your business, and I think you should be...
The EU are going to say, I missed the part where that's my problem.
So we want to arrange to get a better deal in trade relations with the EU. I think Boris Johnson botched it. He just wanted to say he could get a deal...
Didn't you vote for the deal, though? If you think it's such a bad deal, why did you vote for it?
Across the line, so we can get a better deal. I think a trading deal. I'd also like a better deal on research and development, where I think if we work together, it will be better for the country, and a better deal when it comes to...
We are back in the Horizon programme, as far as I'm aware, so what better deal are you going to get on that?
Security and defence,
okay,
particularly in light of what's happened in Ukraine.
The key thing for Julie is the trade part. So I want to ask Rishi Sunak,
could
we get a better... Sorry, I'm just going to go back to the question. Could we get a better trading deal with Europe?
You know what? You might be able to. But do you know what the price of it will be? It will be free movement of people. And that's what Keir Starmer's not being straight with you about, right? They might be able to sit down with the EU.
It's a small price to pay for salvation, is what I'm hearing.
The price of anything, and I know, because I've sat across them for the last 18 months, negotiated the Windsor Framework for Northern Ireland, actually got us into the Horizon programme for R&D. All the things he's talking about involve accepting more migrants. Free movement by the back door. That is the choice for you at this election. Right? If you want free movement to come back, we had Steve's question at the beginning about borders and migration. Right? That is the price of any deal like that with the EU. They have been crystal clear about that. So if you want...
Oh, they haven't been crystal clear. They... What? Oh, my days. There's other things you can get, like dynamic alignment. I don't know how that's going to help with vinyl, but there are things you can do outside of being a member of the EU. Like, this is just a glorious straw man that he has built here.
High migration, fair enough. I don't think that's right. I want to bring the levels of migration down. I will not do any deal with the EU that increases migration when we had a referendum, and that is what I will deliver for you, not more open borders and free movement.
There is a give and a take when you reach deals like this, and perhaps the EU will ask for freedom of movement in return.
No, they won't, though. They don't. Oh, they've got other arrangements with other third countries. I don't know how much dynamic alignment will help vinyl, but like this idea that, to get a better deal with the EU, we have to go back to freedom of movement. Like, there's no country that's like that. There's no country that's like that outside of the EFTA members, outside of the EEA members.
Not going back into the EU. We're not rejoining the single market or the customs union.
Oh, that's going to sting for Graham.
We're not accepting freedom of movement. But I'm not a
migration in any form.
Please let me finish answering the question. I'm not a defeatist like the Prime Minister who says to Julie, bad luck. That's as good as it gets. You'll have to go along with the problems you've got, however hard that is for you. I'm not in that. I'm not going to say to you, Julie, there's nothing I can do to help you or to other people in the same
So what are you going to do?
I'm going to say, I know we can get a better deal than the botched deal that we've got, and I'm going to go out and fight for it. Not going to have freedom of movement come back, not going to go back into the EU, but I'm going to fight for a better deal so you can trade more easily across Europe, so you can succeed and our economy can succeed, because I believe in our country.
So in the 18 months I've had the job, I've negotiated with the EU for the Windsor Framework, restored the government in Northern Ireland and strengthened our union, made sure that we are part of the Horizon scheme on positive terms, warmly welcomed by the entire research community or universities. I've got a track record of doing those deals with the EU, but you just say you'll get a deal. What will it cost? You're not being straight with people. I know. What it will cost is more migration. He's not being straight with you.
He's lying here. This is the populist ruse of they'll offer you some truth and then they'll conclude on a lie. But ask the EU, yeah. What's his name? Furing or whatever his name is? Get that man on the TV.
You think you just magic some good thing for us and they won't want something in return, right? It's just, again, you're taking people for fools. They've been crystal clear the price of any of those things is greater migration.
He's capping.
It's fundamental to how they think about it.
If you were the Prime Minister, you would have to give something in return for the kind of deal you want with Europe.
Yes, but I think it's very important when you start those negotiations, you're very clear the lines you won't cross. And I've just set out the lines that I won't across. But I'm not a defeatist like the Prime Minister, and nor will I say to Julie, I won't insult Julie by saying it's all fine, everything's working, everything's great. Part of the problem we have with this Prime Minister is that his
big Stefan, I'm sure he's going to have a lot to say about this.
The world is millions of miles away from the lived worlds of individuals across the country, the businesses and the families that they're trying to support. There's a massive gap. That is a problem.
But again, you just won't rule out. Will you accept any greater migration as the price of a deal with the EU? Yes or no?
No, I don't.
He doesn't have to, though, because there's other schemes. This is nonsense.
But I would say this, that migration, lawful migration, is at record numbers under this Prime Minister. He's actually the most liberal Prime Minister we've ever had when it comes to immigration. The numbers have gone through the roof. They're actually far higher than they were when we were in the EU. So I really don't think you can start lecturing other people about higher migration. They've never been as high as they are on your watch.
Yeah, what I can do is point out the choice for everyone at this election. This year, because of the actions I've taken, the number of visas we've issued is down by 30%. Net migration is forecast to halve in just the next 12 months because of the measures I've taken, because it was too high. But I've been Prime Minister for 18 months, now it's coming down sharply. Right? That's a progress we'll continue if I'm your Prime Minister, and we'll have a legal cap in Parliament to guarantee the numbers keep falling after that. Now, if Keir Starmer's your Prime Minister, you won't get any of that, because he opposes those changes.
I don't know, guys. I want to ask the audience, actually, because it's going to wrap up soon, hopefully. Who's winning this debate, honestly? I'm not gonna say anything further than that. Who is winning? Bear with me, guys. Alright, I'm going to put a poll up. You guys feel free to vote. We've got about 24 people, so we get about 16 votes.
He won't have a legal cap on migration, and it will go up. Right? So that's
I mean, that's the thing is, that's what the EU always is to them. It's not about trade, it's about migration. That's all they care about.
On legal migration, continue the progress we've made under it's forecast to halve, legal cap in Parliament, or open borders, surrender your borders to the Labour
They've literally, like, I mean, Starmer said he'll get a better deal, but, like, they just waffle.
He's making it up as he goes along.
And in here...
Actually, hang on.
Our next question... No, I'm going to the next question.
You get BBC verified
I'm going to the next question.
No, we just get BBC verified to check that. That's no problem.
They're already at work. Our next question is from Tasneem Zahra.
Fucking hell. Georgia beat Portugal 2-0. It's mad.
I'm in my 20s, and it feels like universities in the UK are churning out students year on year.
Yeah, just start again, because we didn't hear the beginning. Just start your question again.
I'm in my 20s, and it feels like universities in the UK are churning out students year on year. Young people like myself have lost hope for if they will ever get a good job or buy a home. Many of my peers are leaving the UK and going to countries like Australia or Dubai. What would you do to make me stay in the UK?
Thank you,
It's a good question. It's a good question.
And this is going to be the last question and set of answers. Keir Starmer, what would you do to make Tasneem stay in the UK?
Ensure that we've got good, well-paid, skilled jobs here for you and other young people who I do think have been let down in recent years of government, and make sure that we build the houses necessary to ensure that the dream of home ownership lives again, because at the moment it's been killed under this government. The average age for young people to get a house is in their 30s now. I think it should be in the 20s, and if we have 5 more years of this government, it'll go up to the 40s. But we've got to build more houses, 1.5 million houses across the country. That means tough decisions about planning and where those houses are going to be, but we also need to deal with the very high rents that young people are often paying.
And how are you going to deal with that?
So many say to me, I'm paying more in rent than I'd actually pay on a mortgage.
Yep.
A huge proportion, but I can't save for the mortgage deposit that I need. And that's why we will have a low mortgage deposit scheme in place to allow young people...
I mean, it doesn't solve the high rent problem, but okay.
First-time buyers to get on the housing ladder. But we've got to build the houses, 1.5 million houses. The Prime Minister's taken down the targets for house building. They're going off a cliff. sinking, and that is taking down with it your dreams and the dreams of young people across the country who can't get the job that they want. Very often, if they've been to college or university, are returning back home. We have to give them the future that they deserve. That means that we have to go out.
Get voting in the polls, gang, because there's not a lot of time left.
With our manifesto for growth, for wealth creation, and seize the opportunities of the future. Other countries are doing this. I think we should be in the race for the jobs for the future. I think we could win that race, but also roll up our sleeves, start building the houses that are necessary to make sure that you can...
And how are you going to do that when you don't have the construction workers to do it? Because we have a massive skill shortage in those areas.
Afford to buy a house in your 20s, not as it currently is in your 30s. That's the tragedy of the last 10 years.
Right.
And it'll simply go up if we have 5 more years of the current government.
OK, Rishi Sunak, Tasneem's question.
Everyone who's had the opportunity to own their own home remembers what it feels like when you get the keys to your first flat. And it's an incredibly special feeling. I believe in a country where all young people can aspire to that and realise that ambition. It's a very special thing. I know it's too hard. Of course, it's become too hard to buy your own home. I've got 2 very practical, specific things that we will do if I'm your Prime Minister, which will help make it easier. The first is to reintroduce a new form of Help to Buy. You may remember this. It means that you won't have to save for the entire deposit, just 5%, and then you'll be able to get a Help to Buy loan from the government, which covers another 20%. So that potentially can save you...
Yeah, the Help to Buy loans are not great.
Tens of thousands
from what
of pounds. I've heard. And the second thing that we will do is effectively abolish stamp duty for first-time buyers. For the vast, vast majority of first-time buyers, we will abolish stamp duty. Right? Those are 2 very practical things that will save you thousands of pounds. Now, the reason that's important is when I talk to people like you, the most important thing they tell me is, how can you help me with a deposit? Because actually, I'm probably OK and into a decent job, and I can probably afford the mortgage. Right, actually similar to my rent, but what I can't do is save up for the deposit in time.
Tasneem's question was also about jobs, that young people have lost hope about ever getting a good job.
And by doing Help to Buy and abolishing stamp duty, we will massively be able to speed up how quickly you can get on the housing ladder and fulfil that dream of owning your own home. I think it's incredibly important. And as I said, I don't want to give you waffle. 2 very specific things: Help to Buy, abolish stamp duty. Neither backed by Keir Starmer and the Labour Party. So again, there's a very clear choice for you, because if he's your Prime Minister, stamp duty for first-time buyers is going up. Right? That's what the plans are. If he's your Prime Minister, stamp duty... Again, we're back to the welfare debate. I'm happy to have that again. You don't think there's a penny to be made from welfare savings. I do, but there we go. The stamp duty and first-time buyer relief for you, Help to Buy, help you get on the housing ladder. That's a choice for you.
The Chancellor says the money's been spent. It isn't there, Prime Minister. The money isn't there. The Chancellor, not me, your Chancellor said the money's been spent. At all. You can't fund things from nothing. The money has been spent. And this is why, if we go on for another 5 years like this, we're going to end up exactly where we are now or in a worse place.
Yeah, new build qualities are trash. Yeah.
We have to turn the page
like Birmingham
and start,
Council, which are bankrupt and everyone's taxes have been hiked up.
And that means building those 1.5 million houses, and that's what we're determined to do with a strong plan behind it. Already talking to the party.
The people voting for Rishi Sunak, explain yourselves in the chat.
Who will build those houses with us, because I'm absolutely determined that every single young person in this country under a Labour government will feel that the future is better for them. For my parents, it comforted them, even though they had tough times as parents. They didn't have a lot of money, but the thought, the idea that it would be better for their children comforted them and made their lives worthwhile. We've lost that, and we have to get it back, because in the end, the future is about our children and young people. We have to build a country, rebuild a country that is fit for them to live in and to absolutely realise all of their aspirations and their dreams. And I'm determined that we will do that.
Right, so. Tasneem, your question is fundamentally the reason I got into politics. Right? My grandparents emigrated to this country with very little. 2 generations later...
So how the hell did your dad become a GP, and how did your mum become a pharmacist if they had very little?
I have the enormous privilege of standing here as your Prime Minister. I don't think my story would be possible in any other country, and that's why I...
What?
Role as long...
Oh, no.
Remain
up.
In fairness...
In his closing statement.
Thank you also to the team.
It can save you tens of thousands of pounds. And the second thing that will save you a decent job, and I can probably afford the mortgage, right?
Building lost that, but we have to get it back. Realise
to our country for what it's like, whatever you want to do, wherever you live.
There are loads of countries like like Western countries or even Far Eastern countries where you can go, like people have gone there, and made wealth. Like this is nonsense. Like the UK is the only country that they could have done this in.
That's a type of country I believe in, and when you get that job, when you work hard,
it's harder now. It's harder now because I guarantee his grandparents would not be able to come here, based on what he's saying. The visa system would not have allowed it.
I want you to keep more of your hard-earned money, decide how to spend it for yourself. I believe in a society that's aspirational. That's why I want to cut your taxes. It's not just a technocratic thing.
Okay, we're going to ask a follow-up poll.
It's a type of country
Thank you
I
very
believe
much.
in. It's one where your hard work is rewarded.
The winners are the people on the stream.
Your aspirations are supported.
Thank you very much.
And that's what I'm in this to deliver for you, and that's what I will do as your Prime Minister.
We are just about out of time in here. That was the final question of the evening. In a moment, we're going to be joining Laura Koonsberg and Clive Myrie over in the spin room for some more analysis. But before we leave you from here, Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer are going to have 30 seconds each to leave you with a final thought. And the order in which they will speak was decided earlier by a coin toss. First to speak is going to be Rishi Sunak.
I understand why you're frustrated with our party, with me. I get it. But this is not a by-election.
Got another poll in the chat.
It's a choice with profound consequences for you and our country.
I mean, he made Infosys a shit ton of money, so...
Before you make that choice, think what a Labour government would mean. Can you afford to pay at least £2,000 more in tax? And why won't Keir Starmer be straight with you about what he wants to do? And if you are not
Who's talking in the background? Is that Starmer?
About Labour, don't surrender to them. Don't vote for any other party. Vote Conservative.
Rishi Sunak.
That is a lie.
Thank you very much.
I do. It was.
And this is your closing statement, Keir Starmer.
Why didn't you combat it during the debate, you melonhead? Why didn't you actually confront it properly? This is the second time that he's let Sunak get away with that lie. Just pull out the piece of paper where it says clearly it's a lie. It's from the Treasury. It's from the civil servants. Like, guys, it's not hard. Genuinely, I don't think politics is as hard as these people make it out to be.
My message to you is simple. If you want your NHS back, you have to vote for it. If you want a growing economy, you have to vote for it. If you want more...
Okay, in the ballot box, I'm going to write, I vote for my NHS back, and I vote for a stronger economy.
More police on our streets, more teachers in our schools, you have to vote for it. If you want to end 14 years of chaos and rebuild our country, then that power is in your hands. On July the 4th, vote change, vote Labour.
Thank you very much. And that brings to an end this
surprising amount of applause there, honestly.
last head-to-head debate of the election campaign. Thank you very much to our audience.
I'm glad I ain't going to have to stream one of these for another 5 years. Jesus
Especially
Christ,
to
man.
those who ask questions, but you've all been a really...
aggressive. We can see Keir Starmer leaving the debate, I think, tonight. There he is, leaving the venue here in Nottingham after a very, very intense an hour and 15 minutes.
He does not look satisfied with himself, I'll tell you that.
Right then, I want to show you where we are. So, this is the spin room where the parties are beginning to busily trying to claim victory. Let me show you around because it gets pretty crazy in here. We've got journalists from all the other broadcasters, our print colleagues here. And let me show you, this is what happens. So, in the middle of that scrum is Pat McFadden. Oh, the Health Secretary Victoria Atkins has just bumped into me. We're live on BBC One. You're live on BBC One. A very brief word. We're going to talk to your colleague
I think she said it. She said it twice there to make sure she doesn't say anything stupid.
But you chipper or not?
I thought Rishi showed his plan for the future, but also the very...
I like how she does the politician's point.
...serious choice we will make as a country next week.
Okay.
We must not surrender.
Okay, we're going to talk to the Home Secretary in just a minute, but I couldn't resist grabbing a word. Now, this is what happens. There's the Labour Party, some of their top team.
Well, I really don't give a shit.
All right, but it is not all over, bar the...
Used to say that, is this the best we've got to choose from? That was your question. And what was the response? Were you... I don't know.
Why didn't you just ask him during the debate?
Do you think that perhaps things improved as a result of what you heard?
No.
No?
No. I was disappointed with the response from both Rishi and Sir Keir. Neither of them seemed to want to say why they were good, if that makes any sense. They were sort of going on what they'd done in the past. They weren't saying that they weren't being positive. From a Prime Minister, from my perspective, we want a personality. We want somebody that we can recognise. We want somebody on the world stage that is going to project our Great Britain. Right. That's what we want.
Yeah. Well, Tasneem, I mean, you were talking about possibly...
Thank you, the 15% of people who voted for me in that poll. I appreciate that.
Leaving the country. You know, what could these two leaders tell you to make you feel, unlike your friends who've already left, that you have a future here in this country?
I really wanted them to mention the quality of life that's in the UK versus other countries. Why are young people leaving
Thank you for the super chat.
UK to other countries like the UAE, like Australia? It is the quality of life here. It's detrimental here. It is the cost of houses and trying to get onto the property ladder without parental help. Because a lot of young people do not have parental help, and that's just the facts. They didn't mention about how can I, as a young person, feel confident that I will get a very good, well-paying job with my skill set. The unemployment rates for grads is astronomical now.
Yep.
And universities are churning out graduates year on year, but firms and companies, they're cutting their headcount, and university graduates are left, with almost like a depression. It's very hard to find a job now. So I really wanted them to touch on the quality of life and the jobs. Yes, Rishi Sunak said that he will implement a 5% deposit with a loan that we can get from the government for 20%. But that's another loan. They didn't say anything about reducing the cost of houses. They didn't say anything about our quality of life here. So I didn't really feel confident with their answers, neither of them.
OK, back to you, Robert, because you're a long-time Conservative voter.
Yes, yes.
And I'm just wondering how you're feeling now with 7 days to go before you've got to make the big decision.
Still undecided, I'm afraid.
You're one of the undecideds.
I am, very much so, yes. And tonight, in fairness to both the politicians that we've seen, they haven't made me decide one way or the other. I worry about things that haven't been talked about. I worry about inheritance tax.
Right.
Oh, Lord.
I worry about council banding. I worry about fuel duty. We're being pushed down, or let's say being pushed, we're being persuaded to go down the electric vehicle route. Fuel duty provides a huge revenue to the Treasury. How are they going to replace that?
All right. OK, and Tasneem, what about you? 7 days to go. How are you feeling, you one way or the other, in terms of where you may cast your vote?
Before coming here, I kind of had my mind set on which way I'm inclining towards. However, neither party is really enticing to me. Although Rishi Sunak might have enticing incentives for young people, like reducing the stamp duty and so on,
the stamp duty is going to push up the prices of the houses more. That's what's going to happen with that. It's not good.
14 years of flimsy promises and empty promises. How am I to tell that there will be results out of these promises? I can't. There's no results. There hasn't been any results since the last 14 years.
So she's not going to vote Tory?
So, although I may not agree entirely with either leader, I'll have to make a strategic vote.
Labour.
All right, we're going to leave it
she's
there.
She's going to vote for Labour.
Richard, thank you. So, Robert, thank you so much for that. Now, Laura, who's with you here in the spin room?
Well, we'd already bumped into the Health Secretary, Victoria Atkins, didn't we? But with me now is the Home Secretary, James Cleverly, and Wes Streeting for Labour, who wants to be the Health Secretary.
Oh, no. Why would you get the worst two? Oh.
No, about 8 days' time now.
Big Wes.
Firstly to you, Wes Streeting. Your man's been the front runner in this race, but he was a bit on the back foot tonight, wasn't he?
Well, I think it's fair to say that the Prime Minister was very shouty, interrupty, and not very prime ministerial. If Keir got across the fundamental argument, which is, with a week to go now, this election is not decided. People only get change if they vote for it. And it's very clear from Rishi Sunak's performance, if we have 5 more years of the Conservatives, nothing will change. In fact, if there is any change, it will be certainly change for the worse. Whenever he was pressed on how he funds his policies, he wasn't able to answer the questions thrown up by his own Chancellor today of the enormous black hole in their own spending plans. I mean, this is Liz Truss on steroids, and that's the big risk of 5 more years of Conservative chaos, division and incompetence.
James, you're shaking your head there.
Well, he wasn't going to agree.
So What we saw from Keir Starmer was someone who's very, very fragile when actually pushed to answer the questions. He talked over Michelle, he talked over Rishi, he talked over the audience, which is why Rishi really had to assert himself. But what we saw over and over...
Sunak was the one talking over the audience.
Again,
Joni, you didn't miss much, pal. Trust me, you saved 2 hours of your life.
Was Starmer failing to answer the questions, failing to answer what it means to be a woman, failing to answer what he would do with asylum seekers from countries you can't return.
I think our audience knows that actually they were both interrupting a lot, and it looked to me like Rishi Sunak had a new deliberate target, which was just hammer away, and he kept using the word surrender. And he was accusing Labour of wanting to surrender people's finances, surrender the welfare system, surrender the borders. That's very emotive, isn't it? Are you comfortable with that kind of language?
Well, this election is about a choice. And what we have seen, and we saw it today in that leaked audio of a secret plan. So the figures that Labour are putting in the public domain, and the person who's going to be number 2 at the Treasury if Labour form a government basically said, oh, we're talking about 28 million, but that's tiny. And we're only talking about 28 million because the media are putting her under pressure. The actual figure is hundreds of millions. There is a massive black hole, which will inevitably mean tax will go up. And when the PM pushed Keir Starmer on whether he refused to put up taxes, Keir Starmer would not commit to anything that was even hinting.
Okay,
all right,
well, Clive's joined me over here, but we've got Wes Streetham who's rolling his eyes, so we're just going to let him briefly answer that point.
I've just been talking to 2 of the audience members, okay? And they both say that they're not impressed with the offering that has...
Joni, I forget you have jokes. You are correct. You know, this election is about choice. No other election was about choice.
...been made this evening. Principally, certainly in terms of...
All right, let's get these fuckheads gone. Let's see if there's anyone actually interesting here that they're going to talk to.
Okay.
From that.
The two
I think for viewers in Scotland, they'll see how completely irrelevant Scotland...
Who the fuck is that guy?
Brown, the Deputy...
The Labour Party, the Tory Party...
Who the fuck is this guy? I've never seen this guy before. Keith Brown.
Or indeed the BBC being squeezed out of this debate tonight. But also, over and above that, it was like a third-rate vaudeville act. The big things that should have been mentioned weren't mentioned. Scotland wasn't mentioned once. Brexit wasn't mentioned once, even in response to the question of
Brexit was
about the trade relationship with Europe. And austerity wasn't mentioned once. And for that reason, I think this represents, this election, and I've been in elections for 40 years now, represents the biggest fraud on the people of the UK and in Scotland that I've ever seen.
A fraud?
Because they're not, well, they're not talking about what the IFS has said or what the Nuffield Trust has said, £18 billion of cuts. I guarantee whoever gets in, and the Tories will lose, but Conservatism will win. They'll have lower living standards at the end of the next Parliament.
That actually, you know what, this guy is cool. That's an excellent point. The Conservative Party will lose, but Conservatism will win. That's an excellent point there. Hi, Ruth.
We'll still have austerity. We'll still be with Brexit if Labour and Tory want to do that. There's not going to be any change. But they're
here we have a guy who's also better than John Swinney, potentially.
not saying that in this debate.
Well, we're just seeing Rishi Sunak leaving the venue here in Nottingham tonight after a pretty fiery conversation that happened here. But Keith, the fact is, though, that you have significant powers in Scotland, and there are still many viewers in Scotland tonight who are not convinced by what they've seen from the SNP in this campaign, and you have been struggling to maintain your position. Why is that happening?
Well, I think, of course, we have had 14 years of austerity. Of course, that's produced pressure on public services. But you saw Keir Starmer, for example, tonight say the reason why councils, Labour councils, were falling over was because of lack of government funding, although he then refused to rule out giving any more funding. The same applies in Scotland as it applies in Wales.
Yep.
So, of course, 14 years of austerity has an effect on public services. But we have a better track record in terms of housing, affordable housing, in terms of the NHS, in terms of many areas of public policy in Scotland. And also...
Don't have the 2-child cap, have baby boxes. There's so many other things that you could say.
We have tried to mitigate the 2-child cap, which Keir Starmer wants to keep. I couldn't believe tonight I heard a Labour possible Prime Minister attacking a Tory Prime Minister for being too liberal on immigration. It's absolutely irrelevant to the interests of the people of Scotland, what we've seen tonight. And Scotland does have a chance for a better future, which is to vote for independence.
OK, Keith Brown, thank you.
He's pretty good.
Very much indeed. A good reminder, all sorts of different races going in all sorts of different parts of the UK.
Yeah, I mean, Daisy Cooper, you're with us. I just want to understand the tactic clearly from the leadership of your party has been to find a way to cut through. So you've had Ed Davey falling off a pedalo, you've had him on bicycles, you've had him all over the place. Has that actually worked in getting the public to listen to your messages on tax and spend, pensions, foreign policy, all the other important stuff. Has it actually worked?
Yeah. Yeah, it is a shame.
Yes, I think it has. I think if you listen to the debate tonight, I think the gentleman in the audience who really hit the nail on the head was the gentleman who said, is this really the best that we've got? And actually what we've seen over the last few weeks is that many people have really made a human connection to Ed Davey, because he's demonstrated that we can make people laugh, we can make them cry, and that he has a real
I mean, to be fair, he did make people cry during the coalition government, so, you know, we knew that already.
A lifetime of experience as a family carer, and people up and down the country have made that real connection. And at a time,
but are they listening to your policies? Are they hearing the heavy stuff?
I think they really are, because every time we have one of these stunts, it comes with a very serious message. So when Ed was on the paddleboard in Windermere, he was talking about the Lib Dem plan to put an end to the scandal of raw sewage dumping. When he was at a water park, he was talking about the importance of mental health and our pledge to put mental health practitioners into every primary and secondary school. And of course, Ed has talked so passionately about social care time and time again. So yes, I do think people are hearing our messages, but of course, I would have loved to have seen Ed Davey on the stage this evening, so he could have talked.
He can make people laugh and he can make you cry.
Even more about our plans on the NHS.
Okay, you've got 7 days to go now to get that message out. What are you going to do in that 7 days? How are you going to get your voice heard again?
I think you're going to see more of the same. We're going to see a lot of fun from our campaign, making that human connection with people, delivering our message on all sorts of pledges to do with our NHS, how we're going to save social care, how we're going to have real action on the cost of living, and how we protect our local environment. Right around the country, in many places, it's only the Liberal Democrats who can beat the Conservatives and deliver the change that the country are really crying out for. We'll get that message out there loud and clear over the next 7 days.
All right, Daisy Cooper, Keith Brown.
And yeah, these two are way easier and way better to listen to than anyone else that we've heard from tonight. Crazy.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much. Well, Daisy said more fun to come. I wonder what he's going to do next. I didn't think there were any stunts left.
It's not, you know, they're treating politics like a game. It's a bit frustrating.
Of course, Clive, of course, the poll that matters is the one next Thursday that you will all take part in by putting your cross in a box.
It's like one big old game.
But at the BBC, we've been tracking all of the polls, and you can see them now.
Definitely not me, Karen. I'll tell you that for free. I did not win.
In terms of what's been happening in the polls, well, actually, during the campaign, nothing much. You know, you can see there that there has been an uptick for reform. Nigel Farage's party, and that is significant. Yeah. The Liberal Democrats are a little bit up, but broadly speaking, the big gap between the two big parties hasn't really budged, which of course is the stuff of Rishi Sunak's nightmares. We're joined now by Vicky Young, our Deputy Political Editor. Vicky, what did you make of tonight? I mean, is it going to change anything, do you think, in the polls we've just been looking at?
I think what's really interesting there, as you've said about the polls, if you didn't know anything about those polls and you watched that debate tonight, I think that you would know who was out there fighting and trying to make up lost ground. Because the Prime Minister came out there incredibly aggressively, probably too aggressive for some people watching. I've spoken to some of his team and they say that doesn't matter. He had his core message. He wanted to get it across. It seemed well rehearsed, those lines about surrendering borders, surrendering tax, surrendering your finances. I felt he was very much directing most of that message at people who are thinking of voting.
Hey, that's a good point, actually. There were no politicians from Northern Ireland interviewed. That's quite interesting. Or Wales, I think. There was no one from Wales either, I believe.
Reform. They were the audience for him tonight. I think that seemed quite clear, didn't it?
Yes, it felt as if that was where his discussion was. It wasn't necessarily towards the Labour Party and trying to, you know, it feels as if perhaps from the Conservative point of view, that's gone. That ship has sailed. It's about trying to nail down those voters who might decide that they're going to go to the right, to reform.
It plays into what the Conservatives are saying privately, a lot of them, which is this has become a damage limitation exercise. And I think on the flip side of that, if you look at Sir Keir Starmer, they're worried about complacency. So it does all go back to those polls. You know, we know that there's been a few postal ballots gone in, but no other votes have been cast. But they do make a difference to people. And what they're worried about is people watching this who might like to vote.
That's fair, yeah. The dude being, I think he's being investigated, the Labour Wales guy. It is crazy that there are no Northern Ireland parties. They had a whole separate debate for them.
But I'm thinking, well, I don't need to bother really because you're going to win by so much. That's the message that's out, is people who still haven't made up their mind. This
That's what the polls don't really represent.
Late in the day, and they're still really trying to persuade them, and you could hear that in that final message from Sir Keir Starmer.
I mean, it's one of the interesting things about this campaign. Actually, you watching tonight might feel you've already heard too much of it, frankly, but we know, don't we, that actually voters often, for a very good reason, only really tune in at the last moment, and both the parties think, despite all the politicking, there are still maybe millions of votes in play. You know, a few days ago, Labour was even saying they think there's still 7 million votes in play, maybe around a quarter of people, and probably lots of people watching tonight. I just wonder, Vicky, when you talk to both camps, what do they think their best chances?
Are you trying to block the Coke can behind him?
Of answering the fears that you've just told us they have?
I think for the Conservatives, it's really fear of Labour they're trying to instill into those reform voters. You know, they're trying to say to them, look, Labour will put up your taxes, Labour will mean that benefits are higher. All the things that maybe people who are thinking about Labour, who are, you know, actually on the right of politics, are worried about. So they hope that they can really, you know, limit the damage it might do in lots of seats. And as you say, just by peeling off more of those reform voters, they could save an awful lot of seats. And for Labour, you know, they've got to inspire people. Is the change message enough? It's an incredibly powerful one. Of course it is, especially after a party's been in power for 14 years. But they want to get as many people out as possible. Of course they do. And they also don't want to put a foot wrong.
I wonder, Vicky, what you're looking for, expecting in the next...
There's Sky News there.
7 days, the final week of campaigning.
I just think everyone gets so nervous, don't they? And I think if you're a party that is this far ahead in the polls, as Labour do seem to be, you're probably going to withdraw into yourself a bit more, aren't you? You're probably going to get even more cautious. But at the same time, but also then trying to inspire people. They've really got a careful line to tread there. They've got to give people enough reason to get out there and vote. But they don't want to...
I mean, that's the first rule of politics, get out the vote.
Foot wrong, because they do feel they're pretty close, and you know, they don't want to sound complacent.
One of the interesting things someone in the shadow cabinet told me today said, I'm sick with nerves. Sick with nerves. And you can see that. You can absolutely see that. But do you think that's part of the reason why Keir Starmer did appear to be on the back foot tonight? Now, he tried to challenge some of Rishi Sunak's claims more rapidly than he had.
Did he, though? He didn't really question the 2K tax lie.
And some of these other events. But he did feel like he was sort of the one crouching away a bit, where Rishi Sunak punching away every opportunity.
You had to be on the front foot. If you're behind, you've got to lean forward.
Yeah,
you've got
I think maybe he... I think Rishi Sunak in the first one was quite aggressive, even more so here. But yeah, you're right, Sir Keir Starmer. But maybe he's thinking, I need to look prime ministerial. I know a lot of people watching won't have liked the interruptions, the aggression, and Sir Keir Starmer a few times said, stop interrupting me, let me answer the question. You know, maybe he felt that for him, it's fine to sit back a little bit more. But he did, as you say, he pushed back a little bit more on the taxation accusations, didn't he?
Okay,
did he?
Vicky Young, our Deputy Political Editor, thank you
Must
so
have
much
fell
for joining
asleep
us here in the boiling hot spin room. The temperature of the debate was pretty hot. I wondered if either of the leaders might have... Wow, that is it for tonight. 7 days to go. Join us.
It's over.
Of the party with the most...
God damn, that was one hell of an ordeal, gang. I don't know how most of you stuck through that one, I'll be honest. That was crazy. I realise I've misspelled the word loser as well. I put biggest loster. God damn. That was... Wow. That was crazy. I'll be honest. That was... Yeah, that was... I've took my headphones off because it's boiling in this room. That wasn't funny. Sunak was very shouty. He was very shouty. He interrupted a lot. Just kind of astonished. Like, that was so much worse than the ITV one. The host was so much worse than the ITV one. Like, what are the BBC playing at? Genuine, what are the BBC playing at? I just mad. Like I can tell you guys for free, yeah. I don't have a lot of experience like moderating debates and stuff like that. I can tell you for free, I could do a better job. Anyone apart from Bowler Hatman could do a better job than that. Any one of the people on YouTube. That was just absolutely bizarre. She just kept refusing to get involved and just let them talk endlessly. I just, oh man, I cannot believe it. I cannot believe it. That was awful. That was so bad. That is one of the worst debates I think I've ever seen in my life. Sunak was ultra aggressive. If I was going to say who won that one, I'd say Sunak won. I'd say Sunak won that one. I'll be honest. I think he got his points across. It was nonsense. He used far more emotive language. I think it cut through a little bit more. I'm surprised Starmer did well on the trans questions. I'll be honest. I think that he'd get some applause in the crowd as well. I think the answer he gave there was actually really good. But on a lot of the other stuff, he's like, "Oh, we'll get a better deal with the EU. How are you gonna do that?" So yeah, I don't think he did well at all. And when we look at the biggest loser thing, I'm just gonna end this poll now. The biggest losers according to this poll, or Loster, because I can't spell, is the BBC at 50%. So half the people, 11 people, voted for the BBC. 31% voted for Rishi Sunak. 9% voted for Sir Keir Starmer. 9% voted for me. And I can respect that because I do feel like a goddamn loser at this point, I'll be honest. That was awful. It was so bad. I think Starmer won just about. Sunak came across aggressive. I think he did come across aggressive and overbearing, but I think Starmer came across very timid in certain areas, especially when Sunak kept saying they're going to put your taxes up, etc. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump off. I will be on my server probably in about half an hour. I'll be on my server about 11. We can talk about the debate over there. I need to eat something and probably have a shower quickly because I'm dying out here. I'm struggling because it's been a long day. So I'll be on my server around 11 o'clock. I'll ping everyone. If you're not in my Discord server, please feel free to join my Discord server. But other than that, I will catch you guys later because that was one hell of an ordeal. I'll tell you that. That was one hell of an ordeal. I walk into these debates thinking it can't be that bad, and I realise that the people in the debates keep saying stuff like this.
Kick this battle up a notch.
You think it can't get worse, and then it gets worse. I'm just lost, gang. But yeah, thanks everyone. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for hanging in there, the audience, because I know that was rough. That was rough. And yeah, I'll catch you guys hopefully on Saturday. I've got a lot planned for Saturday, but I will be trying to stream on Saturday. So I'll catch you guys then. Bye bye.